In a tight room, the boys were preparing for business. The blonde reported that she had already made all her things. A elephant-like creature noted that it would go if everything is fine. A girl with chestnut hair assured that she was ready to go at any time. The young man announced that now it was time to go forward and explore the dungeon. Recently, one young man told about a gorgeous mansion in a city whose rent costs about 3,000 a month. He does not give him the idea. And suddenly a ghost or some other supernatural creature lives in that mysterious house. The man in the glasses laughed and told the boy not to invent. There are no ghosts here. The guy persistently assured that this is a true truth. They say goblins and mucous membranes appear in the estate. From this story, the boy was much surprised. The man in his glasses lightly moved the sheet in front of him and calmly asked, "Let the guy put his name and seal next to the tick." The young man examines the documents carefully, and in his opinion, there is a sense of danger. Nevertheless, he thinks, if he was a high school student who left his studies and barely made ends meet, it would be difficult to give up such a proposal. So, the young man concluded an agreement and purchased a luxurious estate. As it turned out, the house had another interesting feature. It was connected with dungeons. After that, he decided to think carefully. At noon, a suspicious realtor appeared to the estate, gave him the keys, and began to behave quite strange. After that, the carriers were brought to the young man. Left alone, he undertook to unpack the boxes and gently spread everything in place. When the twilight blanket fell, it came out through the main entrance. Before him stretched immense darkness and cold stone walls, and in the head, the moon was echoed by the alarming realtor about the goblins and snails. The young man was stunned, seeing a real dungeon. The young man said that it may be a simple accident, but still the heart felt different. Whatever it was, he never realized whether he would be able to go back. If you think, it is probably another part of his home. He quietly closes the door to the dungeon, and then heads to the kitchen and moves at the table. He does not know what to do next, and is not sure if he can ever return to his world. Suddenly, the young man notices something unusual. The street light breaks into the room. He looks out the window, trying to understand what is happening, but he understands nothing. It is covered by unexpected surprise. Looking around, he recognizes familiar streets. It is ordinary Japan, the Tachikawa area in the heart of Tokyo. He returns to the house without understanding what happens to this room. The dungeon may only lead one pass, and he is further, where the boy came from. However, the meaning of all this remains a mystery to him. The young man notes that there is one drawback. Now he will have to enter and leave only through the window. But he has a chic estate for only 3,000 YH a month. Perhaps this strange condition in the contract will even turn for the better. It seems to him that he was in a fairy tale dream. The young man firmly decided to go to the store. For a while, a young man comes out of the store and says that it will be enough. He holds a set of hero in his hands, a helmet with a flashlight. In addition, there was also a rock climbing equipment. Feed properly, choosing only the best. The young man put on all the equipment and announced that he was now moving to the dungeon. He approaches the mysterious door and listens. The new moon understands. On the other hand, there is silence. After all, it seems unlikely that it is only necessary to read the door, as they will immediately rush. He enters the dungeon. Thanks to the flashlight, he now shows much better than with his phone. This place is impressive in size. Around a spacious hall, similar to a large room. The hero thinks that Goblin can emerge from the shadow of the column. Suddenly, his attention is attracted. Cutting the corner, the guy stops and is surprised. What is waiting for him behind the column? He listens closely and suggests that goblins can hide there. Although, judging by the sounds, if someone is, it is only one goblin. If something dangerous happens suddenly, he will immediately throw back. He decides to dive even deeper into the cave, stepping carefully and moving stealthily. The young man fades behind the pillar and notices some mobile silhouette. The guy hides behind the column again, his stubborn thought. Goblin is quite close, almost in reaching the hand. But looking closer, he notices the creature is extremely tired, as if it were about to fall off his feet. The guy looks from the pool and thinks, was it really a goblin? His gaze distinguishes a girl's silhouette in the water shade. This creature is not like Goblin at all, rather a girl. Such armor as a rule is worn by women knights in games. But why does she stand still and cry? Maybe it's a trap, but if there is really a girl who can't move, he cannot leave it to his or her own. If it does not show courage now, when does he still have such a chance? Even a simple peasant from Japan will not stay away when the case touches him personally. In his thoughts, He returns to his grandmother's words, who always taught him to reach for help to those who need it. Looking back, he notices that no enemy is visible around, and a strong metal door is heard in front of him. The young man thinks, "What? How does this night girl? Just a bait?" As he gets approaching, as the door opens, and a whole flock of goblins will jump out inside. The young man lifts a pebble from the ground and throws it away. In his thoughts, he warns himself, "We must act carefully." The pebble hurts the girl in the body, forcing her to get up with pain. She begs the guy to stop. The young man captures the meaning of her words and is surprised. Is it really Japanese? Although he does not speak the language perfectly, he still guesses what it is about. He is interested in the girl, whether she is fine with her, but he asks him not to come closer. He thinks about whether his girl understands. The young man reports that it is right now. However, the girl screams again so that he does not fit closer. The guy replies that she is now not able to move from the place. The girl assures that she manages to move. However, the young man realizes that she is not able to do it, and assures that he will put her shoulder now. The girl swore with fear and begged the young man to stop and not deprive her of her life. The young man was surprised to raise his eyebrows, but the girl did not stop. She confidently stated that she was ready to wash everything, clean up, and do any work that would only be told. Returning to Mr. Goblin, she begged him to give her life. The young man guessed that the girl perceived him as Goblin. Looking at his helmet, he realized that the ray of the lantern would blind her eyes. He decides to remove this and asks the girl to look. Having illuminated his face with a flashlight from below, he rushes a terrifying grimace, frightening it. The girl begins to scream in the whole voice. She closes her eyes, and at the same moment, he loses consciousness. The young man finally realized that he had done with her, but at the same time, he rejoices in the fact that she is still alive. He noticed something. The girl did not resist surprise and was scared. At this point, the young man realized that it would be a big shame for him. He puts her on his back and announces that time to go. The young man is also aware that the girl has considerable weight, and her hips are completely wet, and this causes him a great reflective feeling. He also notices her shield and realizes that he will not be able to pick him up with him. So he decides to leave the shield in place. If they manage to get to his room, the girl will be able to recover faster. They go to the house, and the guy suddenly remembers that he has not yet put his bed. So he decides to carefully put the girl just on the floor in a Japanese room. He carefully put it in place. He sits next to her and notes that if he removed her armor and wet clothes, it would be perceived as unacceptable behavior regarding a girl. He looks carefully at her eyes and realizes that she is surprisingly sweet and sophisticated. A real doll with perfect sophistication. Jans yawns and confesses that now when they are safe, he is going to sleep. Today, so much has happened that it feels exhausted. But he can't just leave the girl and go rest. Suddenly, through a dream, he hears someone's voice, who persistently calls him Mr. Wiseman. The young man opens his eyes. Someone is wondering if he has already woke up. The guy looks around and suggests that he got to a Japanese-style room in his new home. Apparently, he died in the middle of the unpacking of things, and everything else was just a dream. He allegedly went to the dungeon and rescued the girl. At the same time, he caresses something with his hand and thinks, did he ever have such a comfortable and warm pillow? The feeling is so pleasant that it is enveloped in a mild pleasure. Suddenly, he is trembling, and he shouts with a cry that he holds not a pillow at all, but a girl. He apologizes to her, explaining that he just tapped for a moment. The girl responds with a smile and assures that she understands everything. She confesses that the hero slept so firmly that she did not want to wake him, though, in fact, she should apologize for her. In addition, a special atmosphere of comfort prevails here. Even a great master finds peace in these walls. The guy asks if she really called him a great master, and notes that it is at least better than being a goblin. The girl apologizes, explaining that she did not see his face, and besides he speaks in the language of the monster, so she was rudely mistaken, accepting him for goblin. The guy is interested in the language of monsters, to which the girl agrees to talk about it, and immediately asks what language he speaks now. The young man realized that the Japanese language was the language of the monster in this underworld, so he was confused with goblin. He noted that the appearance of the great sage, obviously, did not influence at all. The girl wondered if the young man was not a great sage. He lived in the farthest corner of the dungeon, where everything around seemed wonderful and mysterious. It seemed to her that he was a prominent seer who chose loneliness. This endless sofa is a real find. Here you want to stay forever. And these wonderful dolls seemed to her some charming mechanisms. The guy already realized that he was his own chest, which he had just discovered. The girl turns to him again, wondering if he is not a great master. The guy in response states that he is a big master, and these dolls are his charming tools, and in no way they seem strange. To this, the girl confesses, to be honest, she first thought that the guy was a thief and could use black magic against people. She was also worried that half of the dolls were bare. The young man smiles and assures that everything is fine, because he is a prominent sage. Then he is interested in how the girl feels. She replies that she was under the influence of painkillers, so she could not move, but now gradually gets sick. The girl confesses that if the guy did not come to the rescue, trouble could happen. She calls the young man her rescuer, and then asks her to allow her personally to thank for salvation, promising to fulfill any desire. Such words are stunned by the guy. He could not hide the surprise. The girl noted that, despite her appearance, she is a knight, so he should match this image. The young man wondered that the girl allowed him to choose everything she wants. It seemed to him that she was just saying at random everything she had thought. Maybe finally what he dreamed of for a long time? Tori cannot understand his own thoughts, and his grandmother would be very upset. The young man thanks the girl for her friendly attitude, but asks not to worry about it and just forget everything. But the girl denies stubbornly. He says that, being a former knight, she is not able to throw it out of memory and protect this event in her heart for the rest of her life. Tori felt relieved when he heard these words, but did not do the right thing that the former knight would make such promises. He noted that they did not even know each other's names. The girl made it clear, confessing that she forgot about it. She smiles and seems to be Eldorakis, but he immediately adds that the guy can turn to her simple. Real. Tori again speaks the name of the girl, and then confesses that it is not so easy to say it. The girl smiles, repeats her name, and then suggests, if difficult, let her just call her Rhea. Tor thinks that, although she asks him to turn to her by his name, it will be difficult for him to call such a beauty. The girl asks if she can get honor to find out the noble name of the great sage. The young man is in surprise to ask if she really means him. He thinks about himself that next to the name of Eldorasis, the name Great Suzuki would sound funny. In the end, he simply seems to be, I am Tuver. Ray rejoices and notes that it is an extremely beautiful name. Turo thought recognizes that the real reason he does not call himself so, that he is embarrassed to hear from the girl an appeal in his name, although in fact he just pretends to be indifferent, and sincerely dreams that she would call him so. Suddenly he catches himself on the feeling of pity to himself. RIA notes that for Mr. Tour, who came across an extraordinary artifact and became famous as a prominent sage, the boy looks surprisingly young. The Tour is interested in what artifact it is. He later realizes that the girl refers to those subjects that are often found in popular games and novels. They are considered magical artifacts that are usually created by magicians. Ray, although born in the laborer world, is unlikely to boast of great achievements in the sciences. He is convinced that anyone who gets from the world to this room will certainly perceive it as a rare artifact. In fact, all this conversation is not about artifact, but about how it happened that he has already become a sage at such a young age and lives here. The Tour does not know how to answer this question properly, and in general considers it false to assume that all the sages should definitely be Grey Elders. Ray is interested in the palace, and Tuar with a smile replies that at the age of 6 he held the position of a court magician. But then he left the castle, plunging into his hobbies, and forgot about magic. That is why, having only 21 years, the guy has already gained the glory of the great sage. Ray jokingly points out that he is really young, because there is only 3 years between them. The Tour believes that Rhea is incredibly sweet and beautiful, but would not have suggested that she is less than 24. The guy asks in surprise if she really is 18, and the girl nods. He thinks that she is only 18, and it makes him even happier than the realization that he was able to save her. After the two, he decides to ask the girl whether she was lying on the ground because of the painkillers, which released the monster. Her face was noticeably ripping, but she nodded as a sign of consent. She said she was not scared when monsters are attacked. But to be aware of this while remaining in the face, sitting in complete darkness, and not being able to move, that's what is really scared. The girl shudders and admits that it was truly creepy. Turo realizes that fear has been shaking her. In such a situation, it is not surprising that she was soaked. After all, it was impossible to move the body. and it was extremely inconvenient. The young man suggested that the girl take a hot bath. Ray raised her eyebrows in surprise. Is there a bath in the dungeon? The young man only reassured. Everything is under control. He still sought to offer her a boil, as soon as she could move on her own. It is strange that the first to experience this bath will become a girl. Smiling, he quietly thanks the dungeon. The young man returns to the girl. I am convinced that all the unpleasant symptoms have retreating, and she can move freely. He reports that he is already picking up a hot bath and asks her to wait a little. However, suddenly she notices her knees. The young man exclaimed, in surprise, asking why taking such a strange pose. The girl sincerely apologized, admitting her guilt. The guy allowed her to use her bathroom, and she instead did something obscene. The guy felt that she had just reached her and hurried to reassure her. Everything is fine. He was also stunned by the fact that the girl could not use the toilet when she wanted. There was no other way out, and he did not reproach her for it. The girl opened her eyes in surprise and examined the young man's outfit carefully. She was confused and exclaimed that she was completely wet. The tube nodded, confirming. It happened when he carried her on his back. Raya Autorila. All this happened just before the eyes of a great sage. The tour noted that this sometimes happens. However, Raya denied him, stating that it was absolutely impossible. At the heart of the tour, he agreed with the girl. Usually no one moisturizes the sages. Ristis burst into tears and confessed that she had never become a bride. Rue stopped for a moment, and then, looking thoughtfully, he said that in this case he would have to marry the girl. Rial did not hide his astonishment. She wondered if she was really told the great sages true. The tour thought that he should be careful to scatter such statements, and hurried to apologize to her. Suddenly, Ria asks if he was really a joke. Her voice becomes threatening, and she adds that even the majestic sage would not be dared to joke. Then Ria again addresses him. Did you joke? The tour instantly understands. This smile is more frightening than his first outing to the dungeon. The girl says that she has time to go to the bath, and then asks where she is now. Tural extends her hand and notes that she wants to share with her one knowledge. She agrees and sincerely thanks the boy. The young man explained that before going to the bathroom, this room usually serves as a corridor where it is customary to shoot shoes. The girl broke out, confessing that she was not aware of it. He also noted that she would probably be easier to remove her shoes if you first get rid of armor. Ray agreed with this idea. The girl returned to the tour and confessed that she was still almost feeling her own hands. She appeals to him to help her with her back. Toro, without hesitation, agrees. He believes that it just helps to remove the armor, but the heart in the chest is crazy. Then they dump the armor and go to the bathroom. Ria is surprised to exclaim that there is really a bath in the dungeon. She is interested in the tour that happened to his room, where he usually lives. The tour is denied, they say. It is not some dungeon at all, but ordinary apartments. The girl does not hide her astonishment. Turov noted that it was nothing more than a bath, but the girl just climbed into her, and that's everything. She agreed, adding that usually such things could be seen except in luxurious estates or palaces. Tur suddenly realized that rich people in homes have separate bathrooms. So he asked the girl, "Do you have a soul?" Raya became aware that there was no shower here, and hurried to apologize. The tour assured that everything is fine, and it is not surprising that she did not know about it, because it was one of the artifacts created by the great sage. The girl smiled happily. The tour explains that everything is elementary. It is enough for the girl to just turn the valve, and hot water will flow immediately from the tap. To find a comfortable temperature, you need to twist the valve left or right, so it will be able to adjust the water as it is convenient. Then he draws attention to her behavior and understands. The girl reacts very calmly, as if for her it is a habitual business, and it seems that she sees the soul for the first time. Suddenly, Ria happily exclaims that the water is really hot. However, the girl is genuinely surprised. How can it be if there is no fire here? The tour states that it is a combination of water and fiery magic. However, Raya suspiciously shakes his head and believes that's some mysterious wonder. But this is a real miracle. She has heard about many artifacts created by the great sages for battles, but this cup is striking her perfection. She can no longer wait for it to try it. Turo noticed that Ri, with special enthusiasm, treats baths, and in her behavior she looks at Light Baby. However, the reason for this is its sincere, direct nature. He also advises the girl to hurry, gets a bottle and asks if she knows what it is. The girl looks carefully and confesses that she has never seen this slippery substance before. In response, the Torah explains, "It is enough to press, and the soap will start. You can soap the body, and after such washing the hair will become tender and silky." The girl is amazed and asks if she can really use it. Torah assures that yes. He pours the liquid on her palm, and Raya gladly notices that it is a liquid soap. She notes how well it foams and how pleasant it has aroma. Immediately recognizes the delicate notes of flowers into the smell. Tuva agrees and says he will wait in the living room. A girl can leave her dirty clothes somewhere here. He will pick up something for her. Ria agrees. A little time passed, the young man began to look at the boxes with things, thinking that to give up. Finally, he came to the conclusion that ordinary t-shirt and sports pants will be appropriate. But suddenly he remembered the underwear. The guy thinks, what? How does he confess to her that only t-shirts are in his wardrobe? He realizes how serious everything is and does not want to upset his grandmother. The young man goes to the bathroom and reports Ri that he has grabbed fresh clothes for her. He carefully asks whether the girl is not against the girl if he enters the locker room. Ria agrees. Hearing the gentle tune, the Tur thought that the girl seems to enjoy the merchandise with great pleasure. He stands at the door. He says he will leave things here nearby, and in the meantime Ray thank him for his care and help. The Tur goes, thinking, if you stay here a little, it will inevitably turn into a dark magician. Suddenly he hears a desperate cry of a girl. He asks the girl what has happened, but only he screams even more louder. He does not understand what is happening there, and whether the goblins could hide in that place, but was still convinced that the house remained safe. The young man rapidly breaks into the room. It is poured with water from the shower. He is surprised to realize that the soul behaves completely unmanageably. He noticed how the girl first unscrewed the tap to full capacity, and then, covered with panic, sharply transferred it to a minimum temperature, and, frightened, released a shower from his hands. Twice the water turned off. He explains, if the tap is open to the full, the water will be too hot, so the girl should be carefully unscrewed more slowly. The most comfortable temperature is hidden somewhere in the middle. He looks carefully at a frightened girl. The young man is embarrassed, justified that everything happened by accident. He just wanted to help. At this point, RU is already going to go. Suddenly, Rhea hugs him tightly from behind, grabbing by surprise. He froze in place. She confesses that she was overwhelmed by fear. The Tur realized this girl was recently on the edge of death in the dungeon, where the danger was chatting around every corner, and the monsters could attack at any moment. Now she was among the strange things she did not know before, in a completely unfamiliar place. He perfectly understood her fear and helplessness. The Tur asks for caring whether everything is fine. The girl apologizes to the boy and confesses that he still feels a slight fear. It took a little time. The girl was still washed and asked if he went to the door. The young man replied that he was still standing. The young man believed that he promised Ri, a girl who had just quenched his tears, to be with her forever. They were only divided by the door until they had sincere conversations about everything in the world. He goes to the dungeon again. Some time has passed, and the young man goes down to the dungeon. Looking around, he notes that there seems to be no monsters. He seeks to move forward. It opens a window with its characteristics. Suddenly, a window with a status opens before Suzuki Tora. The young man shines with joy because he finally sees his own characteristics. He realizes that everything has taken off and began at first. During the joint font, he realized a lot from the conversation that happened between them. The dungeon, to which this room led, was called the Underground World, the ruins of the ancient city hidden underground. That is why the monsters who live here pose a deadly threat. Ray's sleep pill was created by special goblins, masters of poisoned darts and various arrows. Raya told that she was a knight, but her dexterity is also impressive. Nevertheless, there are slugs that lightly run away and simply cannot catch them. It is rumored that such creatures can gain a lot of experience. The guy exclaimed loudly, asking the girl what she just said. Ray was frightened and wondered excitedly if something strange could slap. The young man noted that he was quite captured by these puddles. However, before that, he reported Ray's that due to his status of the Great Sage, he has a unique way to learn about his characteristics. He was interested in how ordinary people get such information about themselves. The girl was astonished in surprise. Are there other methods other than known to her? The young man replied that there was only one way, but at the same time asked the girl to tell what method she was using. Riaz shared. When she thinks about it, The numbers themselves arise in her thoughts. After all, it is a manifestation of divine providence, the gift of God to each of his creations. Here the girl noticed. Her status is no longer reflected. The tour explained that this room was fascinated by a special spell. It is impossible to check the status here. However, he assured that they should return to the dungeon, and the girl will be able to see everything as before. Ray confessed that she was feeling true. The tour suggested that this room really obeys the laws and logic of this world. He was convinced that he should go to the dungeon, as he could find out the whole truth about his status. He is convinced that he is able to define even his skills or things. And isn't it cool? The guy is interested in iron doors who are behind the girl when she lost consciousness. The guy asks if the monster will appear if you open the door. Ray apologizes and explains that she closed the door when she ran away from the monster, just before he fainted under the influence of sleeping pills. The tour believed that everything went exactly as he predicted, and therefore there was no monster here. He reported that when his nose, he left her shield in the dungeon, so he would return immediately to pick him up. Raya sighed and noted that she should immediately grasp the shield with her. She did not want to worry the great sage with such little things. The young man replied that everything was okay, and suggested that the girl use the bathroom to take his own pleasure. Now our hero was in the dungeon. The main task is to review your status. In addition, there is no need to announce it loudly. However, at first glance, he does not seem too strong, although the guy suggests that it can only be temporary, at an early stage. It is most important now, its further development. Looking at this, it is more interested not in the usual set of numbers, but the lack of limitation of the maximum limit of development of skill. He thinks, if he has a mana stock, therefore he has magic. The young man realizes that everything he remembers at the moment is only that. A new task is waiting for him. To find Ryshield. The young man is carefully approaching the shield, thinks that the likelihood of encountering monsters is small here, so hope is still there. The idea was in his head. He will be able to hide under this shield if there is a danger suddenly. He raises his shield and notices a sinister mucus membrane. Tours covers fear. It understands that everything really happens. Desperately, he begins to shake the mucus, trying to make him disappear. Suddenly, aura flashes around his body. The young man strongly grabs the shield and leaves the head. The tour decides to find out what the case is. It breaks into a room covered by the belief that it is his last moments. The tour, barely translating the breath, joyfully states, he succeeded. He defeated mucus and even raised his level. This is the Japanese who overcame the monster and became stronger. It is probably even stronger. It is worth checking it in practice. The young man turns to the Rhea, warns that he will soon return, and she is wondering if she is still in the bathroom. Raya greets the boy and delicately asks whether he can stay there for a short time. The young man agreed and allowed her to use the device as much as he pleased. He decided to take the opportunity and take a dynamometer. The young man squeezes the object and is surprised that this time he managed to squeeze as long as 44 kilograms. Earlier, no matter how tense, only 40 kilograms remained its maximum. He finally realizes that all this really happens. Every additional score of characteristics gives him another 4 kilograms of strength. It turns out, reaching the 10th level, it will have as much as 80 kilograms of power. Full of determination, he firmly decides to raise the level and crush the apple with his own hands. Suddenly, Rhea appeared and noticed the young man that the clothes he gave were truly comfortable. But it looks pretty strange. The young man looked around as a surprise, and then she said with a smile that this hairstyle was incredibly a girl. After getting rid of, Ray asked the guy whether everything was really as he said. She explained that after falling into the dungeon, her hair is somewhat disheveled, although she usually deliberately does such a hairstyle so that she does not interfere with the case. Thanks to the soap that invented that roux, her hair became soft and silky, and the swing gives incredible pleasure. The tour thought that he would breathe the aroma of her hair. Suddenly, the girl asked if the tour was really going to go to the bathroom. Raya said she would be waiting in the room where she spent the night. She also wondered if the gloomy wars of the great sage could turn while waiting. The young man was surprised to ask and wondered whether there was something like a Japanese-style room at all. It seems that only manga and a few thin books lie there. Suddenly, 2 robbers were frightened. The girl asks the boy excitedly, "What happened?" He asks her to stay in the room. The girl agrees. Suddenly, the young man rushed to put books in the box and hide them. He opens the door and turns to Ray, saying that he should talk to that girl. They squat at the table, and the young man warns, there is a bit extremely dangerous that can call evil if the uninitiated try to read it. He also states that these books are forbidden grimoires. Ria is surprised to ask whether these are the same forbidden grimoires. The frightened Ria asked what she blamed. Turo reassured the girl, they say, nothing wrong happened, and this girl knows nothing about them. However, he warned, touching them is strictly forbidden, no matter where they are. The girl humbly agreed. The tour felt relieved by the sincerity of Ria. Such frankness was in favor of both of them. Raya, hesitant, wondered if she could ask her question. The tour guessed that it is unlikely to concern something personal, and he was worried about another. Why did the girls always depict on the covers? Although it is probably too late to mention it, but I am worried about one question. Are we not getting a full bath too wastefully? After all, water is not an infinite resource. The young man assured that everything is fine, because they use water from the underground source. He himself doubts whether it is true, but if you think it is. Raya explained that it was ordinary water, and she wondered if she could drink at least one glass. The young man immediately remembered how valuable there is pure water in the dungeon. Ria had nothing with her, probably. She wanted to drink. She wondered if it was really impossible. The tour assured, everything is quite possible. He gets up from the table and reports that instead of ordinary water, he will offer her something more delicious. It opens the refrigerator and gives the girl the opportunity to choose. She is wondering what it is. He treats the girl with drinks and has wondered if she knows something about water and milk. The tour explains that it is red tea, and perhaps the girl is not known about it at all. Ria picks up, confirming that such a drink is a real luxurious delicacy. The tour assured that he understood everything, and the girl probably knew nothing about circles. The girl agreed with that. The girl holds her eyes on the gas, laborers, and wonders if the guy is also going to taste her. The tour notes that if the girl is not going to drink, then let it just leave a drink. He adds that he will take a bath. The girl asks if everything is fine, and the guy, scattering in generosity, asks not to worry and promises, just shared his impressions. After some time, the guy goes to the bathroom, where there was real. Subsequently, he comes out of there, more cheerful, and reports that he has restored strength. The tour notes that so much happened that he even forgot to dine. Looking at the river, he notices that she looks hungry, so he decides, you need to do something with it. Suddenly, his gaze stops at Ray. The guy told the girl that she could leave a drink to herself if she didn't like it. The girl confidently replied that she would drink everything to the last drop, because she is no longer a child who was angry because of the medicine. He noted that the circles have a slight taste of medication. Ria wondered with interest if it was not really a potion. As soon as he drank a drink, all numbness in her hands and legs disappeared almost instantly. The young man assured that there is nothing to worry about, because circles are a real medicine. Ray noted that the artifact of the great sage really impresses with its quality. At the same time, it is, in fact, a strong sleeping pill, which can only be completely released from the average level of scattering magic. Tours wondered. Suddenly, in some other world, a circle is a real universal healing. There may be other products with similar extraordinary properties. He is interested in a girl who usually has to cook underground during adventures. Rice replies, for the most part, it is stale, like stone, bread, and small pieces of dried, white fish from salt. She is grateful for any food that can be found in the dungeon, but it does not taste good. Therefore, the girl sows the prey in the soup, so that she becomes softer and easier to taste. That's how they become suitable for food. The tuber noticed that the girl was embarrassing. Raya, reassuring it, added, if you think about, this aroma is really very pleasant. She asked the boy what he was doing. The tour replied that he was cooking dinner, and asked if Ria would come. Despite its appearance, cooking is its strong side. The guy works as a chef in a family restaurant. Ria wondered if he was sorry to spend valuable food stocks and even drinks right here in the dungeon. The tour remarked to the girl that she would not be impolite. If she does not eat, he would feel bad. In addition, he had already undertook to cook a dinner for two, and was not going to taste the dish in the eyes of a hungry person. Hearing this, the girl asked the tour to wait a minute. She grabbed her feet and threw her sideways. In a moment, the girl appeared, approached the Torah, and, awakened her gaze, confessed that she is ashamed. But that's all she had. She stretched out a few coins from her purse. The girl confessed that she understands that this amount is not enough to thank him in full, but still asked to accept a gift. In the meantime, The guy noticed that he was holding silver and gold coins in his hand. Toru suggested that the girl not pay for it, but Ria categorically refused to accept such help. The tour was discussed. In the worst case, he would not be able to take money from those who need support. She needs to find a good reason. Tourist calls himself a prominent sage, but despite the lack of money, he hid in the depths of the dungeon, far underground. He asks the girl to tell what is happening above. Raya replies that she does not deny, but such an agreement seems unfair. The tour asks if she could help him with the creation of artifacts. However, he suspects that her ability can agree for something else, not related to artifacts. Ria said that if everything was fine, it would help. She confessed that she was a little awkward, because she was somewhat attached to money. The tour laughed, and noted that both of them are only in favor of them. Ria sincerely thanked the tour. A little time passed, and the dinner was already on the table. Ray asked if the young man had already coped, because the preparation of such complex dishes usually takes much longer. The food smells great and looks extremely appetizing. The tour thought that it was a common but high-quality cutlet in Bamberg with rice, a little refined thanks to its own secrets, and supplemented with fresh salad. Since the famine was very sustained, this time he prepared everything lightly quickly. Suddenly, the girl was loudly in her stomach. The young man laughed and, winning, invited her finally to sit on the table. The girl wondered how they should eat it. The tour suggested that it could simply cut the cutlet with a knife and gently put a piece in the mouth. He advises the girl to carefully cut the fried egg from above. Then explains, "Let the yolk mix with the sauce, and then you can taste the dish." Tourist is delighted to emphasize that it is delicious. Ria, intrigued, also expresses a desire to try. She tastes and exclaims that it is delicious. She has never tried such a deliciousness. The tour is joking, they say. The girl exaggerates because she is hungry. She confirmed that it was true. Even when she lived in the house, such a food she had never had to taste. The tour added that he was very pleased that the girl liked his dishes, as he suspected earlier, to divide the meal with someone much tastier than to eat alone. It has passed for a while. The dishes are already washed. The guy brings tea and appeals to the girl to tell about the events on the surface. Ray willingly agree, but instead he is interested in Tukur, why he is released. The young man with a smile replies that after the main course, they are waiting for dessert or tender cakes for tea. The girl tastes dessert and exclaims enthusiastically that he is delicious. It seems as if the whole body has become a weightless, full of lightness. Surprised, she is wondering if it is again some artifact with magical properties, such as circles. However, she doubted that this effect would last for a long time. Even now that the girl took food, she felt her vital energy and mana growing gradually. The young woman realized, all this really resembles a computer game. Raya noted that she could not check her status at this time, but she confidently states that the dish that was prepared by the tour is a real artifact. The young man just laughed back, deciding that he could check it in the dungeon later. He was interested in solving many more things, and before bedtime he would like to buy something. So the guy appeals to Ria to ask, could they leave the house shortly? The girl asks in surprise whether they really come out. Turo suddenly realizes that they are in the dungeons, so her surprise is quite natural. Yet it is strange why ROO was in the Japanese room. He is spinning in his head. She not notice something outside the window? Suddenly, the tour is sharply raised and calls to follow it. The girl looked around in a confusion, not understanding what happened. The young man opens the door and is interested in the girl's opinion on this. The girl explains that she deliberately made a window in the wall, and Tor has a great sense of style. To insert glass here, the guy obviously wanted to see the walls of the dungeon with his own eyes. The Tor was surprised and could not understand what was happening, but whether Ray really saw in the window only a deaf wall. He examines the surrounding area and states with relief, it is Japan, as he guessed. Suddenly, the guy disappears directly in the wall and again exclaims that it is incredible. There is magic that allows you to pass through the walls. Some time passed, and the young man said he had already returned. However, he failed to take Ray, so he had to go to the store himself. The girl is welcome from the tour, and the guy thinks with surprise if she is still in the bathroom. He looks into the bathroom and is interested in the girl what she does. The girl reports that she decided to wash things. The guy realizes that the girl over her clothes. Tor notes that for people from her world, it is a common phenomenon. The girl is wondering what exactly was talking about. Turin denies that he said something like that, and then she wonders what she uses for washing. The girl confesses that he is washed with a regular body gel, and immediately recognizes that you should not do it. Turo assures that everything is fine, although it really has a special artifact for washing. The girl apologizes to the boy, and he kindly asks her not to worry. Then Ray is interested in the guy if he has something that can dry things. The guy replies in the affirmative. The guy extends the girl's hair to and advises to use it. Ray, however, asks whether or not there is nothing suspicious here. Turo is aware that it is really his underwear. The girl with a smile notes that she noticed this thing in the basket and immediately guessed who she belongs. She is wondering, it may not be necessary to wash her. The young man blushed, thinking that it was because of his remark, but the girl still reached things manually. He explained that they would not really prevent them from freshening up. She thanks the young man with a smile. The girl agrees. Her face is illuminated by a friendly smile. As soon as the lingerie is dry on the rope, Ray turns to the boy and is wondering if he will find a cloth and olive oil. He agrees, but immediately asks why it is. The girl explains. All this is needed to care for armor. It has passed for a while, and the guy extends the girl with a cloth and a bottle of oil. Ray thanked the young man sincerely. She is going to tidy up her armor. Turo thought he could ask her to help collect the bed. However, he decided not to bother the girl and take up work on her own. The guy enters the room and is about to spread the bed. Tourist notes that the instructions indicate that it is necessary to collect together or with more people, but he hopes that despite this, he will be able to cope on his own. Then the young man confesses that it turned out to be more difficult than he imagined. Ray is surprised to ask if he really is able to make furniture, but he takes help to help the guy with a bed. The girl is delighted. The bed is just incredible. It is so strong and comfortable in appearance that it is simply not to resist joy. The guy smiles and offers, "It seems time to relax." The tour says the girl will sleep on the bed. Ria asks the boy in surprise, "Where will you sleep?" The guy replies that he will settle on the floor, but Raya denies. So he is not suitable, and insists that he will sleep on the floor herself. She assures her that she is very tired and should relax on the bed. In the end, he still tried to insist on his own, but Raya's steadfastness took the mountain. Now he sleeps on the bed. The tour calmly reports that it will soon turn off the magic that feed the light. Suddenly, he notices a confused expression on the girl's face and asks what happened. Ray wants a young man for good night, to which he answers her the same. Late night, the young man realizes that he fails to fall asleep, probably because he gave his pillow. Suddenly, the young man notices the river in the door. She stands with a pillow in her hands. She is interested in a young man if he wants a pillow. The young man sings in a confusion, and the girl calmly points out that she does not need a pillow. She notices how the girl trembles slightly during the handshake. The tour assures that this mattress is surprisingly convenient and gives truly a strong sleep. He offers the girl to spend the night with him in bed. Rianot agrees, and so they go to bed together. The girl was still trembling, but Roos carefully took her hand. Ray squeezed the young man's hand. Ria noticed the boy that his hand was extremely warm and was not scared. The tour confessed that he was very pleased to hear it. She thanked the young man once again, after which they plunged into the arms of sleep. The next morning, the round opens the eyes from the call of Ria. The girl says goodbye to him at night, and the guy barely opens his eyelids. The Torah shudders, and then suddenly begins to scream loudly. Ria is also frightened and asks the guy what happened to him. Looking at the girl, Torah suddenly realizes he slept with Ria in one bed that night. This discovery will stun him even more, because earlier the girls were not interested in it. The tour apologizes, explaining that as a great sage still suffers from the memories of wars. Raya nods and immediately turns to the boy, wondering if everything is fine with him. The tour replies whether everything is well with him. The events of the last day emerge in memory, and he realizes how much happened. His door is led to the dungeon. He checked his statues, met with a slim in battle, overcome it, and moved on to the next level. Moreover, in his house now, the girl is staying, like from another world. The guy has not yet decided how to handle all this, but it is surprisingly easy for him. He addresses the guest whether she wants to have breakfast. Ray nods as a sign of consent. Waking up and having a breakfast together, they began to decompose and unpack his things. The young man confessed that he is awkward because the girl helps him contrary to his own will. But in response, she assured her duty. Tur is interested in whether there are still living Souths that live in volcanic craters. He would like to ask the river something. Gods or semi, people who always happen in the fairy tale worlds, like elves and dwarves. Raya is amazed at the mention of the hemispheres, assuring that she has never met such creatures among people and cannot say anything about them. After that, the tour is interested in whether the girl knows some kind of kind creatures close to people. Ray tells about elves and semi-cots. They can be surprisingly friendly to the one who visits the forest. The guy finally realizes elves and half-coats are not a fiction, but a reality. The girl is passionate about sharing that she was looking for something interesting about the elves. Such a find strikes the tour, and he does not hide his surprise. The Rhine noticed that it does not happen to see the element with a tentacle monster. She is interested. She asks if she can watch her closer. The young man suddenly grabs the book. He runs away and then returns. He explains that it is extremely dangerous, one of the forbidden gumwar. He thinks of how much everything was on the verge. Cannot understand what more jewels are hidden and confused in these chests. Then he appeals to Rhea to make a break. The girl goes towards him. It takes a little time, and it takes in a circle. The young man notes that the girl seems to like the circle. She smiles and agrees. They say, "It is only necessary to taste once, and you can no longer forget this sweet taste." The young man encourages her to enjoy the adventure, and then notes that there are many monsters in the dungeon. He is interested in what dangerous varieties of mucus occur in these dark bowels. The girl is interested in the slugs, noting that among them are poisonous purple individuals with a dangerous toxin in the body, as well as dirty yellow acid mucous membranes that produce caustic fluid. She adds that all these creatures seem to be particularly dangerous species, and probably Tor knows more about them. The guy confesses that he has not encountered monsters for a long time, and mentally returns to the moment when he had green mucus. After a fascinating conversation about amazing creatures from another world, they return to sorting things. Suddenly, Raya comes across something unusual, and the tournament covers panic again. The girl demonstrates him magazines and comments enthusiastically. "All these clothes are extremely sweet." The young man says he saw it in yesterday and immediately purchased a cosplay costume. The girl is wondering if this item is also not a dangerous artifact. The young man is convinced that she is wrong. In his opinion, if the food in the dungeon gives special properties, then the clothes should act like. In addition, Ray can temporarily dress in a tracksuit combined with a swimsuit until its underwear dries. The girl is surprised that she has never seen such clothes before. Can it be artifacts? The young man smiles gently in response and assures that he sometimes wears such things, and if she likes, let him take everything to himself. Rhea shines with happiness and asks immediately whether she can try it right now. Chura is surprised to respond to the fact that Rhea is about to wear it right now. Meanwhile, the girl confesses that she has already rushed to the locker room. Turo could not understand that all this really happened. For a while, Rhea comes out and is interested in the young man, whether he likes new clothes and whether he looks. The young man leaves silent. He thoughtfully notes how these streamlined shorts clearly emphasize all the curves of the figure, and rounded thighs immediately rush into the eye. He also really wants to lie down, putting his head on his knees like a soft pillow. Ray captures his thoughts, and it is terribly embarrassed by the young man. The girl jokingly notes that her linen will dry, although she is significantly inferior to this luxurious dress. When the twilight went down, they completed the packaging and also had a break and relax. He addresses the girl with the question of what she has further plans. He is interested in the girl if she really cannot return. Rhea sighs and confirms that she was in the dungeon with his comrades, but dividing with them, lost her sword. She is afraid to return herself. Tours guessed it even earlier. Even if she does not realize it, the events in the dungeon were deeply impressed. Raya confesses that she hoped that she would be able to join other adventure seekers who are currently exploring the dungeon. But the girl asks the young man uncertainly, will she be a burden for him while she stays here? The Tor just smiles and assures that it is not a problem in any way. After all, he is a great sage, and if she desires, it can stay here as much as you like, even forever. The girl thanks for everything, but confesses that she is time to return. For goodbye, she carefully asks if you can still visit Tor. The young man nods as a sign of consent and assures that a girl can always return when she wants. The girl is wondering if the bathroom can use. The Tor agrees. The guy adds that while Rhea is bathed, he will go to the dungeon. The young man thinks that no monsters are visible nearby, and even the goblins are not afraid. Their appearance is not worried at all. Rhea noted that monsters usually did not suddenly occur, so it is unclear how this slippery was able to appear, because she looked carefully at the whole room. Snails can grow to the size of the nail, but some of them reach such a value that they are already easily attacked even on humans. The smaller representatives of these creatures are hidden until they gain the desired mass and strength. To test his guessing about the special food properties in this world, he took a little provision with him to try it here. He is aware that food from this world is able to strengthen human characteristics, increasing them by as much as 50%. There are also dishes that themselves do not give any bonuses, but can transmit the effects of previously consumed food. In addition, some food even helps to restore health. He decides to review his current characteristics. He then decides to check how his performance has increased on the device to measure force. The result is pleasantly impressive. According to calculations, measurement shows 64 kilograms. Its assumptions have been confirmed. Characteristics really have an impact in the real world. Wanting to become stronger, he goes in search of snails. Suddenly, his attention is attracted by a small snail. The young man notices that the snail is still too small, so even if he destroys it, it will not benefit. He decides to wait for him to grow up and then end it with him. However, if everything goes according to the plan, the snail will have time to leave the offspring. Here you can grow monsters and easily get a high level. Returning home, he pours into the vessel of water and adds a little food residue. In addition, the air holes punch. At this point, he notices snail white. After all, purple and dirty yellow individuals are dangerous, so white is the best option. The guy looks carefully at the container and, smiling, notes that this snail is a real beauty. He adds that he will soon be able to find even more. He does not even imagine how Ray reacts to see it. She barely got out of the dungeon and is still afraid of monsters. Suddenly, he hears a girl out of the bath. The guy immediately realizes, you need to hide the mucus as soon as possible. He decides to hide the find in a mango box. It is here that, in his opinion, the most reliable, because he categorically forbade to touch this box. He then asks the mucus to wait here and study the forbidden gumwar. The girl enters the room and is interested in what happened. The tour is only waving, they say, nothing special. The girl assures that if something happens, bathing will be free and the guy will be able to leave. Tor thankfully thanks her. Use when resting in the bathroom. The young man confesses that in truth, keeping a thing from another world can be quite risky here, and if Ray noticed it, the consequences may not be too pleasant. He decides to pick up this faster with him back from the dungeon. The young man gets a small vessel. He notices that the lid is slightly open. Did he not cover her? The girl calls the boy and is interested in where he goes. The Tor replies that he goes to the dungeon and will soon return. Subsequently, the guy returns to the dungeon and carefully releases the slug. He explains the creature gently. Now it is her home and should be returned here again. The young man promised to treat her with delicious food and provide a more spacious home, so he advises to enjoy a new life. The guy is back. The girl is wondering what he did there. He replies that he did not do anything special and asks if she knows something about white snails. The girl says she heard is a rare, endangered species. The guy does not hide his astonishment. Ria explains that this type of monster is extremely rare and is not a threat, but for 20 years no one has seen them. The young man is aware of how exceptional this mucous membrane is. He is aware that since the creature does not attack people, it should be turned back. The young man informs Reyes that for some time he is forced to go underground again. The girl asks him to be careful. The young man goes to the dungeon and notices an open chest there. He immediately realizes that white mucus is no longer in place, and suddenly his gaze stops on a mysterious figure nearby. He notices the figure of the cocoon measure. He says that this figure is so gentle and smooth to the touch that he is extremely pleased to hold her in his hands. He has no idea how this figure was in the dungeon. She may have caught on his clothes and fallen here. However, the guy does not remember at all to buy a similar thing. Putting the find in his pocket, he quietly murmurs that he cannot remember anything. He suddenly notices that white snails are not visible. Instead, she finds another, but sighs. She admits that this is not as sweet as the previous one, but you do not have to choose. While he is thinking whether she dares to take her in his hands, the snail suddenly hurts him by his finger. The Tor complains that this slug bit him by his finger. He adds indignantly that this creature is not soap at all. Putting the mucous membrane in the container, the Tor repeats, there is nothing pleasant in it. There he will not grow until he grows up. Some time has passed and the young man finally returns. Rhea meets him with a friendly smile and notes that this time it was not much longer. He explains in response, He was too fond of studying the forbidden grimoires. He gets the figure and realizes she is wonderful, and it does not matter what it is made of. The search for this nut has been delayed much longer than he was expecting, so tomorrow he will try again. He may be able to decide something. He leaves the room and reports Reyes that it's time to go to bed. Barney noted that they always feel completely safe when Arya is behind, as if they were standing behind an indestructible stone wall. But when she is ahead, he himself has to take all the blows, although he is not a master in defense. Of course, aft, he notices that Rey is still afraid to fall asleep alone, so they go to bed again, and it gives them wonderful feelings. But today it is on sports shorts, and it is easy to touch him with her feet. Even if he guessed to give her other clothes, it suddenly comes to the conclusion. The dream still does not take it. He opens his eyes and notices someone's outline over himself. The tour is interested in Rhea, whether she has already woke up. However, when he turns, he sees that Rhea lies with him. He cannot understand why Rhea has become so. The tour was engulfed by fear and full misunderstanding. It was quietly sleeping near him, while at the same time another Rhea stood right in front of him. But it is so tiny. The guy is not sure if he is in a dream, whether it is all happening. Suddenly, a tiny copy of Rhea appears, which makes a conversation with him, claiming that he should become the master. The guy asks a double Rhea who she is. In response, she just smiles and asks, "Is not the similarity of them noticeable?" She also claims that everything should remain identical under her clothes. Turo is embarrassed and screaming. Suddenly, he notices that something has moved behind and grabs the mucous membrane. At that moment, the girl wakes up and asks for anything. The guy apologizes and hides the slippery find unnoticed. He claims to be a great sage and remembered the times when he had to face the fifth magical catastrophe. The girl in surprise noted that she did not know what it could happen. Rhea goes to bed, confessing that it is not easy. Yet she is nearby, so a young man can feel calm. Then I gently slammed her until she fell asleep. When Rey fell asleep, the young man quietly left the bed. It seemed to him that she was instantly in the kingdom of Morpheus. The young man stood up and left the room calmly. He reaches out his hand, and the snail has already settled on his palm. He thinks himself thoughtfully. Is all this just because he does not like the master? The young man asked her to wear shorts, and then he stared more closely and thought whether his assumption could be correct. Slime assures that he is not harmful at all. Slime suddenly begins to sob. The tour, trying to reassure him, asks to wait a little and not cry, and then he is wondering if he is really a white slim. The slime agrees, and the tour is interested in why he chose the image of Rose with such shorts. Slime replies that the boy came to her liking. That is why he turned so, for the sake of the guy. The tour asks if the mucus really means it, calling the master. The mucus confirms, and the boy explains why he considers the tour to his master. The mucus specifies, the reason is that the tour is the first person he has ever met. Turo explains that the reason is not in the food he suggested, or in some arrangements between them. Mucus refuses and assures that the gentleman really likes this girl. The guy is in surprise to ask whether that is really the case. He is not even believed when the Miniria Mucus speaks, because he confesses that only the mention of the owner gives him warmth. Mucus assures that he is ready to fulfill any desire of the guy. The most difficult in this situation seemed Tours of Minoria, but at the same time it was worried, because it remained Mucus. The guy is interested in Mucus if she is a girl. In response, the mucus asks if the guy really seeks to find out her gender. She explains that there is no division of boys and girls among the mucus. The guy agrees, acknowledging that it is true. Slime assures that everything is fine. He then warns the guy that he is a little bit, and asks to suffer, and then suddenly crawls into his pants. The guy exclaims loudly when he feels a slippery creature sliding up his foot. The tour is interested in Slivniak, what it is for action. He apologizes, explaining that he only needed to scan quickly. The tour asks what information it was possible to get from the scan. Then the mucus turned into a rearing and addressed the guy. "Look!" After that, she dropped her shorts again. The tour turned away and threw her. "It is enough!" Seeing that the mucus turned into hermaphrodite, the tour shouted loudly. Barney noted that they always feel completely safe when Arya is behind, as if they were standing behind an indestructible stone wall. But when she is ahead, he himself has to take all the blows, although he is not a master in defense. Of course, aft, Tour, when they apologize, reports that he is a great sage. He talks about a nightmare in which he tried to stop the explosion of the magic reactor. As he finds himself here, He does not fully understand. Raya assured that everything was settling and promised to stay with him for the night. Then they settled to sleep again, and it was the first that he plunged into a dream arms. In a few minutes, the guy left the bedroom. Slime sincerely apologized to the tour, explaining that she only wanted to demonstrate mucus creatures have no gender. The tour still insisted that she choose some specific gender. The girl assured that she understands everything and will undoubtedly fulfill every instruction of her master. If it is given human food, it could even increase in size to fully satisfy any of his desire. Her words were really unusual and mysterious. He denied the tour, they say, he did not need it, and immediately wondered why Slime suddenly seeks to comply with his orders. Slime replied that the reason is that it belongs to the white variety. The tour had matured to him and clarified what it means. The mucus membrane said that initially the white mucus clan was used with humans. They could take the appearance of the one whom their master loves. Taking care of others is the life credo of white mucus membranes. However, the gift of reincarnation and a sincere desire to give the owners of care and love played with them an evil joke. The mean people took advantage of it. Some began to use white slims for their own purposes. Therefore, they were forced to hide, to leave human settlements and go to the dungeon, where no soul lives. However, she was convinced that not all people were bad, so she decided to leave her friends and go on a journey. And it was he who became the first person she met on his way. Mucus agreed and confessed that getting acquainted from the tour fills her heart with happiness. The tour is still convinced that only he is here, a stranger from another world. But the ability to turn into anything that develops with its adulthood really attracts attention. He promises to feed the mucus, and he, in turn, has to help him. The girl jokingly asks if it has to do with any wasteland. He approaches Ruvism Bardist and is interested in what dish she would like to taste. Ruwo, with enthusiasm, notes that all human dishes are incredibly tasty, and adults assure that they are also good for health. The tour notices that they exchange stories about other people. He smiles and says that he will then cook the dish. Mucus is grateful to the boy. After a while, he prepared a salad of mucus membranes. She gladly took a giant fork and smiled, noticed that the dish turned out to be extremely tasty. After that, he asked the girl that she usually eats. Slime explained that he was fed only by the moss from the dungeons and the remains of monsters. There was little choice. Hearing from the interlocutor that that is why he was tasted by the proposed food, Slime willingly agreed. He watches with interest how Mucus tries to cope with a huge fork. The tour confesses that it is very inconvenient to eat in this way. It seems that it is about to turn into mucus again. And Slime adds, "I heard, they say, you can get on nuts if you are not in the image that the owner wants." The tour assures that she does not get angry and allows the mucus to be in the image that she likes. Mucus returns to its true appearance and thanks to the boy with gratitude. Then the mucus begins to eagerly eat lettuce. The tour finally understands how they consume food. Afterwards, he is interested in Slusniak. "What is your name?" Slime cannot answer this question, so the tour addresses her with a proposal. Is she not mind if he gives her a name? Slime responds in surprise, and the tour explains, "It will be much more convenient." Mucus recalls that once in ancient times, they were friends with people. He says, then many similar names were even given to her. The tour is thinking and interested. What about the nozzle? After all, this mucus is so round and transparent. Slime Delight says that it is an extremely sweet name that she likes. The happy tour replies, from now on they will call her Shizuka. The tour is drawn to Shizuka, noting that she has grown. Shizuka agrees with the guy because she has never heard herself that it is possible to grow so much thanks to human food. The tour suspects that this treat has a special impact. It may be even more powerful for snails. Since the girl has already grown, she can now become human size. The guy is amazed. Shinsuke explains that it will increase its size by filling itself with air and adding water to the cavity, so everything should resort. Turkey advises her to go to the bath. A little time passed and he poured water, announcing that everything was ready. Suzuka warned that she would now turn, and in a moment her figure suddenly became much larger. She noted that this body is a little difficult, but she managed to keep this form. The tour wondered if she was really feeling this weight. The girl explained that there was water inside her, and it would probably be easier for her if she became larger. Then the tour asked if she wanted to eat. The girl gladly agreed, praised the workshop of the owner's kitchen, and assured that she would eat everything until the last crumb. Tara also nodded approvingly and added that he had already decided to do something. Soon, the mouth of the hand noodle gardi bukak was already cooked. And then even more pizza. And one more milk bun. The girl shone with happiness. Then Suzuka wondered what help the master needs. The tour explained that he was foraging in a small family restaurant. Suzuka, interested, clarified what a family restaurant is. To the surprise of the tour, the girl was well aware what a half-rate was. The young man said he was working in a restaurant. Shizuka said she knew about restaurants. She listened to them when the adults shared talking about the human world. The tour replied that while he was working, the girl could transform into him, spend time with RIA, and together to do something interesting. She agreed to this Suzuka, promising that she would do his best and put all her efforts. The tour suddenly realizes that he is afraid to leave Ria herself, and it begins to cover anxiety. Meanwhile, the Suzuka announces that it will now start its transformation. Suddenly she rushes into the arms to Turo. She appeals to the young man to allow her to examine his body. This time she promises to do everything perfectly, and asks the girl to keep calm. The guy called it the subject, and the gentleman asked him quietly to be careful. For a while, tourist noted that he was incredibly tickling, to which the Shizuke smiled and called for a little more. Subsequently, the nozzle completed the examination of the teacher's body. The guy noted that next time she should warn in advance about such actions. The girl immediately apologized to him. After that, she stated that she would be reincarnated now, and in a moment there was a copy of his own copy in front of the guy. Turo noted that it was not at all like looking at themselves in the mirror. The feeling was completely others. Everything seemed strange and unnatural. Shizuka was enthusiastically told the boy that he was incredibly cool. In response, the tour thanked her and asked her to stay with Ria until he was busy with business and allow him to act like a real sage. Shizuka agreed with a smile. She said that she would be uncomfortable if the guy worked himself, and they did nothing from Ria, so she may also have to take the case. The tour thought it was an interesting idea, but forcing a girl to do his job would be wrong. On this, Zuka denied that the boy is feeding them, and human food products need costs. The guy agreed, and Suzuka confessed that he had no money, but he wanted to thank him somehow. He wondered if the work would not be too difficult for her. The girl confidently replied that she could handle. The girl wondered if she could pick up the ingredients. The guy nodded as a sign of consent. Meanwhile, the Shidua lively took the cooking. She said that for real pizza on bread used a regular loaf. Turo was already confused when he saw the dish that the Shizuka prepared according to his recent recipe. She was exactly the same as he had. He tasted and smiled, noted that it was a real taste. The Shizuka shone with joy and reported that she had a full scan. She also retained his memories and can even reproduce his characteristic behavior. Turo noted that the Shimuk quickly and accurately adopts his gestures and behavior. He hesitated if the dungeon would disappear when he had to go to work. If such an opportunity falls, he would not mind at least once or twice change with her. The young man appeals to the proposal. Does he want to let the girl get acquainted with her work? The Nurkater agrees without hesitation. The guy noted that now she is no longer in his pocket. The girl carefully wondered if she could use the appearance of Rei. The guy replied that only employees were allowed at work. Shizuka replied that everything was fine until no one sees her. She could turn into clothes, so she suggested that the boy dress her. It will turn into clothes, and the boy will only just put it on. The only thing, he will have to completely undress at first. Turo realized everything and, smiling, acknowledged that it sounds interesting. Further, the young man begins to undress, and he is embarrassed. To appear without clothes in front of others is extremely ashamed. Shizuku apologizes and cautiously presses against Ruiz, hugging him with his body. The next moment she turned to her clothes. The tour remarked that this appearance was so plausible that it really appeared real clothing. His body enveloped a strange feeling of stickiness. Suddenly, Shizuka grabbed the guy. She assured that he sincerely regret, and even added that this part of the body seems quite attractive. Yes, to stop. Then the young man felt squeezed and asked the girl to retreat a little, so that he had more space. They went out on the streets of the city. The girl confessed that she heard a lot of stories from friends, but in fact the world was completely different than she imagined. She also confessed to the boy that he really comes from another world. The tour promised that he would tell her later, but now asked to keep the most important thing in memory. He shows the car and compares it to the horse. They reach it to another place, but the speed is simply incredible. If such transport comes to a person, it can end in death. You need to be very careful. The girl adds that she has already seen a similar car on illustrations in the book. She noted that there was no one around. Tor noted that now the north. In addition, he added, they are on the pedestrian track, and separately there are a strip for cars. In conclusion, he pointed to the traffic light. Finally, they got to the place of work, and he stated that he was going where he intended, so the Sinsuk should not do anything like that. The girl nodded as a sign of consent. They were met by a girl who turned to Suzuki. The young man apologized for the fact that he had to ask the day off so urgently, but promised that he would come to work from tomorrow. The girl just smiled, and assured that it did not create any problems. The girl wondered how about the house. Are ghosts found there? The young man replied that no one has appeared. However, in his thoughts, he mentioned a night girl and a strange snail who had already emerged from darkness. The girl wondered what made the boy come here in the middle of the night. He explained that he works only tomorrow, but decided to take the opportunity to put in order in his locker. The girl noted his diligence and confessed that she had never met such an avid young man. In response to his words that he always liked to work here, she added that he was also an extremely skilled chef. Then the young man wondered who was on duty in the kitchen today. The girl replied that at first it was supposed to be Sagawa, but he was urgently called for a meeting, so now the kitchen is taking care of the manager. The young man decides to say hello to the manager. He goes to the kitchen and welcomes her husband. He asks the tour if he will be able to leave the house later. The young man agrees, noting that he has a change at work. The manager sighed with relief. He heard that the guy had settled in a real hell. There were even rumors that he would no longer come back here. Turo laughed, noting that it is not surprising that such chats reached the boy. The guy said he would not be able to show a shake in the presence of a manager. Returning to him, he thanked the fact that he was allowed to go so suddenly. He then asked if he could work a little instead, and at the same time suggested that the man rest. The man replies that he would be ashamed, because it was a change of a guy during which he could rest. The tour is carelessly waving. They say, everything is fine. He himself wanted to prepare for tomorrow. But first he should change. In the locker room, the guy demonstrates the sewing of his work clothes. The girl is wondering if she also needs to dress in something like that. He nods affirmatively. In a moment, the clothes of the tour turn into a cook. The tour goes to the manager and offers him a little rest. The man thanks for his care, accepts this proposal, and reports that he will return in half an hour. Turo believes that the manager is too timid, so he is in shape. There is nothing to worry about. The young man assures the snack. He will teach her everything you need to do for the menu, and a detailed instruction hangs on the wall. He turns to the Skizuk, interested in her thought. The girl replied that she was reminded. Suddenly, another girl ran into the kitchen and reported that a group of teenagers came. Tyre believed that he was not just a flock of teenagers, but real bold bullies. They like to play the role of cool, incite the crowd, and later create problems. The guy is wondering where you can find the manager. The girl explains that he is usually outside, but this time it is not visible. She addresses the guy, asking if he can trust him. The tour notes that, apparently, the guy was not going to work today and for free, however, once he offered help himself, then let him join. In response, the Skizuk gently asks the guy to allow her to do the matter on her own. The girl asks the master only to watch her. Meanwhile, the tour notices that his body involuntarily performs someone else's will. The novel fully controls it. The girl is taken to cook, and the tour cannot believe her eyes. Everything turns out to be perfectly tasty. The guy is stunning that the girl really remembered everything. He grabbed a praise of Shizukuk for her efforts, and she thanks sincerely. Turi understands. If everything happens as it should, he can safely trust her. It took some time, and they finally returned at 5 in the morning. The young man sighs. Just think that I will go there at 8. Do you fall asleep here? Shizuk invites the tour to stay with RIA and go to work. However, the guy denies, insisting that he should work and not stay away. Then the Shizuk asks whether she can spend the night with them. Tora does not deny, he only asks, just don't wake the Rai, she should not see you. The chassis is made between the tour and the river. She assures that the owner's bed is extremely cozy and warm. That's how they eventually dive into sleep. The next morning, the round wakes up under the alarm clock. The young man notices that the clock is 10 o'clock. Although today his change lasts from 8 in the morning to the third day, he is convinced that he put an alarm clock on the 7. And here it comes to him. He still had to wait for a message from the Sinsuk. The tour realizes that she got a job for this job to take his seat. The young man goes to the kitchen where Ria is already fussed. The girl wondered at the boy how he was now. He shrugged his shoulders, because he did not understand what she was talking about. Then Ray reminded. In the morning, when the guy woke up, he did not rest because he was ill for illness. The guy suggested that Shizuka decided to repeat his behavior. The guy assures that everything is fine with him, and she is wondering if Ray has been having breakfast. The girl replies that she ate the sandwich, which he prepared. The tour supports her words and mentally admires what kind of soap. The tour says that he should go to the Sage Council, so he uses the magic of movement. The girl wishes him a happy road. Subsequently, a young man arrives at a hat, glasses and mask. Tateki with anxiety approaches him and asks whether he wants to sit at a table for one person. The tour notices that Teddy works today. Although she is usually confident in herself, a balanced and attractive high school student, the unexpected appearance of the tour makes her get lost. And it is not surprising. If he appeared as usual, there would be two such as him. However, this time he orders a table for one person. The waitress leads it inside. The young man realizes that she preferred another and sat down for the farthest table. And it is even for him. He calmly orders assorted from meat delicacies. Having examined the restaurant, the young man notices that everything goes the best. The menu is attractive, the visitors are happy, the atmosphere is calm. Obviously, in the shadow of things go great. The girl brings assorted from various types of meat. The guy mentally admires. The sewing has prepared the dish flawlessly, and it also has a very appetizing look. He tastes her, and pleased, clicks the button to call the staff. Tatisha goes to the young man and is interested in what happened. He in response asks to call a chef. Daddy feels embarrassing. The tour notices that as he guessed, on her face clearly reflects all thoughts on his words. Everything is clear. Place ordinary, family restaurant. But he strongly states that he really needs to do it. He picks up from his place and exclaims that the dish is so delicious that he is in person to thank the cook personally. The girl promises to contact him immediately. In the thoughts of the tour, there is an assumption. A person seeking to talk to a chef in a regular family eatery will become a topic for discussion for a long time. Subsequently, Shizuka approaches the table and politely thanks the client for patient expectations. She recognizes her master, and there is a noticeable excitement on the face. The tour praised the dish, marking its incredible taste, and then stood up from the table and reported that he would wait for a sewing near the toilet. She was confused for a moment. In the toilet. It has passed for a while, and the guy begins to angrily reproach the gentleman for her actions. Paying out, the Shizuku explains. It is only necessary to get out of here, and everyone will understand everything. Tours are reassuring, they say. There are no problems. The rest of the work will take on today. Seizuku is interested in whether the owner will have serious trouble. The guy assures that it will not be a problem for him, because she did it for the sake of him. Despite this, he still proposes to exchange. First, he will come out, and the girl will appear a little later when she dresses and will be able to complete the meeting. Then she should return home immediately and cook a lunch for Ria, which is already waiting for her. He puts all hopes on this girl. For some time, and the young man, tired to the edge, returns home, complaining of severe fatigue. For some reason, it seems to him that at work he began to treat him better. Even the Tishi, which was usually cold, was friendly today. He suspects that this is the merit of the Shizuki. He goes to the house and suddenly realizes that if he crosses the threshold now, there will be two of him. Returning home, he suddenly feels something soft under his feet. The young man breaks on his feet and asks where he hid. He is a real masking master. From the excitement, the guy laughed nervously. Terura noticed that the Shinsuk seems to have prompted to play with hiding places, so it would be easier for them to change places. The girl announces that now her turn to hide. Churus apologizes and asks to make a little rest because he feels terrible fatigue. The girl does not deny and replies that it will be able to repair her armor during this time. The young man falls on the chair. The Shizaka approaches the boy and sincerely apologizes for his act, explaining that she was not able to prevent him in advance. The guy replies that all is well. Now, if you really need it, he will definitely seek the help of Shizuku. And then she is interested in the girl why she did so. Shizaka shares that she has heard from her friends. You need to give yourself to people completely. In addition, she confesses that she has repeatedly caught the dishes that the master prepared. The guy recalls that most white mucus has long lost their faith in humans, but only the Shizuka remains on his side. The tour declares that she will handle her part on her own, and the girl will support him where he will not be able to cope. E gently caresses her. Shizuka notes that it would be great if the owner had taken under his wing of others. The tour laughs and caps up. They say, "How does he take care of everyone?" Later that night, when silence reigned in the house and all plunged into a dream, Seacook quietly returned to the bed. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the hero suddenly wakes up. He climbs out of bed and is already going to leave. Suddenly the chasm stops him, asking where he goes. The young man is surprised. He then notes that he needs to increase his level in the dungeon. C is worried and asks the boy to be careful. Subsequently, the young man returns to the dungeon and sees many fierce, dangerous snails there. He absolutely cannot understand what happened here. Suddenly, it comes to the young man that he left the blue mucous membrane in the chest even earlier. Did he really have time to break up? The guy was already okay, but he remembers. He wanted to raise the level, and everything is the best. Subsequently, the young man wipes sweat out of his face and acknowledges that he was finally able to defend all the contradictions with everyone. It is covered by shock, and he understands that it is no longer possible to gain more experience if there is nothing left around. After the snails multiplied, destroying them, it increased its level. Having a food, the hero notices that his health has completely recovered. The Tura noticed how its characteristics are slowly improving, but it seeks to raise its level even higher. When the guy gets the turn, he is convinced, as he guessed, none of them left here. He looks for another small, slippery creature and suddenly notices the iron door. Tuver recalls that Ray closed these iron doors, escaping from the monsters. This place is reminiscent of his room. While the door is locked, the dungeon seems safe. It is in such shelters that desperate adventure seekers go. But Tuver confesses that he will have to open the door. And suddenly it will attract even more monsters? He understands that this can be dangerous, so he first decides to carefully explore the situation. The young man opens the door, but cannot understand what it means. A solid stone wall opened behind the door. He cannot understand why she was here. He was convinced that Ria was heading there, but still did not believe that she had deceived him. If the young man does not betray, Ray also noted that a stone wall does not leave her room. Suddenly he hears a slight tapping. He realizes that he has real monsters before him. Suddenly, someone's loud exclamation is heard. A charm girl suddenly emerged from the wall. She pushed the boy. She fell to the ground. The Tour opens his eyes and is wondering, isn't it a witch in front of him? He looks at her carefully and notices a sinister black hat, a black mantle, and a wooden stick in his hands. Undoubtedly, before him there is a real magician. Suddenly, the girl cried out and hurriedly urged the boy to close the door, because they were rapidly approaching a giant centipede. The guy twisted the handle and hurried to close the door. Before his eyes, he flashed the image of a giant scolopendra, who was chasing a girl, and he was not sure whether he would have time to close the door quickly. But suddenly, and the monster had already slid into the hole and slipped inside. The guy shuddered with fear. Then he finally realizes she is huge, and he does not overcome it. At this point, the doors suddenly close, firmly clamping the body of the centipede. Turo suddenly realizes that she was trapped. He states that they now need to defeat her. The magician emphasizes that the guy is not able to kill her, so he orders him to retreat. She then uses magic. The girl calls for a spell, Hell, and the dazzling pillar of flames with a roar flies towards a giant centipede. She lit up and began to shout. The Tour is delighted. This magic seems to him a real miracle. The fortnight falls down and fades without giving any signs of life. The Tour rotates and notices that the girl is faint. He approaches her, gently interested if everything is fine with her. Suddenly the girl opens her eyes and shouted excitedly, warns the boy of danger behind. Behind his back was a multi-legged 40. It rushes to the Tour, which in response is screaming and strikes with an axe for slaughtering pigs. Pyphiles and Turi find themselves at a new level. It was amazed by it by surprise. He sincerely hopes that the centipede has already died. He understands that it does not matter now. Going to the girl, he wondered if she was fine with her, and whether she was injured. She answered that she felt quite tolerant and then added, the centipede was poisonous. The Tour was staring in surprise. He suggested that this poison causes paralysis. The girl supplemented, poisoning leads to slow death, and only the magic of healing can be saved from it. However, given the circumstances, she doubted that it was possible now. The girl breathed heavily and confessed that only the idea that she would have to die in such a spooky place, stunning her, appearing how terrible the end could be. The Tour is unbuttoned and extends her a bottle when he recalls how Ever Circles healed Ray from paralysis, so he hopes that this drink will help the witch. The young man hot believes that circles neutralize the poison that affects the girl. So he asks her to take a sip of circle. Then he notices that she lacks the strength even to bring a glass to her mouth. Without thinking, he picks up his mouth. After that, he extends the girl that object. Sure, it is his only chance to save. The girl suddenly comes with cough. She is amazed at how quickly her body recovered. The young man explains, it is universal medicine, and offers her a drink. Although he does not know whether the circle really has the same properties in this world, he says confidently not to cause suspicion. The girl made a few more sips, and was surprised that this black water really neutralizes the poison. In her opinion, the drink has a sweet taste and a slight tingling on the tongue. She has never tasted such a strange but high-speed medicine, and a similar taste for her in a novelty. The young man replied that he was glad to hear it, but noticed that the girl was still exhausted. He assured that she had a cozy and safe place where she could relax. But the girl looked at him distrustfully. The girl said that if the young man intended to do something with her, then let him not delay and decide everything immediately. The guy was ashamed of surprise. The girl noted that only the offender could settle in such a death. And this is not yet mentioned by his weird clothes. She does not have any jewelry. The only thing she left is she herself. The girl asks if he really helped her. Turo does not hide his astonishment. He told the girl she was wrong. Once upon a time he reached out to her help, but he swears he did it just to save her. He also assures that this happened for the first time, and already imagines how he will justify before Ray. She can't even understand why she forgive her, because she is not here. As a result, he concludes that it is probably just an unfortunate misunderstanding. The girl wondered if she would not hurt her. She could not believe that someone would voluntarily wear strange clothes and live in the dungeon for no good reason. It seemed that she did not rest the main question. Who is he really? Turo panics, tells that he is a hermit who decided to settle here, away from the humor world behind the walls of the dungeon. The girl stands next to the boy, then extends his hand. The tour looks at this scene, not fully realizing what is happening. He asks in surprise whether they are really going to shake their hands. The girl asks if he wants to take her to a safe place. He confesses that he has not gained strength, so he asks the boy, could he take her hand? After a while, the girl raises the girl and she begins to apologize. He became awkward. She apologizes for blaming him because he saved her life. Tum just smiles in response and says that it is not worthy of attention. You should always support those who are in trouble. The girl smiles and notes that the guy is really very good. In the meantime, only one thing is spinning in her head, as if to escape from the centipede. The tour confidently answers that there is no doubt because they have almost got a safe place, so the girl can finally exhale with relief. He adds that this hiding place is quite close, right behind that strange door. The girl stops in front of the wall and notes that, except for her, there is nothing here. The torch is amazed and asks how it can be. Opening the door, he turns to the girl again. Does she seize them now? But he assures that nothing has changed. Turov mentioned in surprise how he was the corridor, carrying the river to his room, and now he thinks what happened then. The fright gripped the girl, and she asked the young man with anxiety if he was really able to hurt her. She strongly demands that he release her immediately. The tour, without saying the words, rushed forward. The girl was at first confused, and then she closed her eyes. Immediately, they both passed through the wall. The girl opened her eyes and noticed in surprise that she was in a completely unfamiliar place. He realized that everything happened according to his premonitions. All but him saw only the wall. But it was necessary to touch him, and the person could also pass through this obstacle. Therefore, the iron door on the other side and the windows served as a kind of secret entrances. Suddenly there is a novel and warmly welcomed with the owner. The girl was surprised to see a white snail here. Shizuke confirmed her assumption, saying that she is the white snail. The tour reports that the guest is a magician and explains that it is not good because of poisoning, so it asks for a nozzle to remove your shoes. The girl agrees and carefully removes the boots from the magician. The girl reports that she took off her shoes. The guy thanks the Shizuke, after which they go to the room together. It passed for a while, and the young man asked the girl with her well-being. She replied that everything was fine with her, but she does not hide her astonishment. Just imagine. In the heart of the dungeon is hidden such a wonderful room, and in addition, even a rare white snail happened here. She looks closely at the guy and is wondering if he is a prominent sage. After that, she confesses that she was intrigued by this guy even harder. A cunning smile appears on the face, and she begins to slowly remove her clothes. The girl drops the robe. Turo remembers how he sought to open her in the dungeon, but her outfit is now looking somewhat provocative. Meanwhile, she removes the hat, and from under her strands playfully look at the elven ears. The Tuor asks the girl if she is really an elf. In response, and with a light smile, he reports that he belongs to the higher elves, and she is wondering if he has only noticed it. Tuor recognizes that he has never seen representatives of high elves. The girl is genuinely surprised and notes that this is a great event, for the first time to meet a real ELN. Then she notes that men just adore them. The girl hugs the Tuor and assures that not of those elves who love someone to thank. Now she can no longer offer anything to this young man, but her curiosity does not go away. That is why she is able to give herself only for a sense of gratitude, but never for other reasons. The Tuor asked her to stop and noted that she was peeking. She was embarrassed, and, in his way, asked if they really wanted to be alone. If so, she is ready to dissolve in the floor so that they can simply not pay attention to it. The torture slid his eyes on the bends of the girl, and thought that, although Rhea in the bath also made the impression of lush forms, these were simply overly luxurious. He recalled that Rhea was sleeping in the next room. Suddenly the sleepy girl came to him and asked what happened. He had to wake up at this moment. The room reigned in the room. Turoro assured the girl that she was misunderstood. Suddenly, Ray screamed and wondered with surprise whether she had a real detachable witch's witch. Then Diato asked, "Is this really all powerful nighttime aria?" Tura immobile from surprise. Some time has passed, and Rija, Tora, and Daito were already sitting at the same table. Everyone froze in silent silence. The Tuor wondered the girls if they were really familiar. Raya confidently replied that yes, but Dito noted that they were completely alien to each other. Ray said she was constantly calling this girl to her company. Dita replied that every time she was refusing. In her opinion, the girl always clings to the little things and only confused under her feet. Now they had a wonderful atmosphere, but its presence spoiled everything. The girl confessed that Dito reminded her. What she did from the tour was quite obscene. Kido asked an inappropriate question and asked what Ria wanted to say. Her behavior was quite natural for people. She is interested in the girl, whether there was nothing between her and the boy. Then he turns to Ria, asking whether her jealousy is biting, and adds that it makes it simply unbearable. Raya with anger asks to stop these conversations. She realized that there were clearly not a relationship between them. Then she asked the girls to calm down. She also asked Diato to go to rest because she felt bad, and she was better off to bed. They went to the living room with River. Raya noted that it was a wonderful idea, but Diego immediately denied it, calling this idea unsuccessful. It was quite bad to allow the sage to spend the night in the Louser place in her own home, and then to reproach the Arias that she dared to call herself a knight. She noted that it is quite logical to spend the night in the living room. A little time has passed. The Tor lay in his bed, looking thoughtfully in the ceiling. He realized that it was the first night from the moment of moving that he would have to spend alone. He explored the dungeon as soon as he settled in this place. Subsequently, the girl of the night joined him, and now the sorceress lives under one roof. Both are surprisingly beautiful. In ordinary life, he would hardly dare to even look in their direction. But for them, he is a great sage, and it causes him amaze and disbelief. He has never been so for himself. He is not even a sage and does not differ at all. Then it turns to the other side and notices a Diato. The guy, not at all lost, calmly asks the girl why she found herself in the room. After all, according to his knowledge, she should now sleep with River in the living room. Guide noted that Ria had just fallen asleep. He was surprised how easily she plunged into a dream, as soon as a small baby. However, she is questioned in the tour, why he said he was not a great sage. The guy only now realized that he inadvertently voiced it aloud. The tour replied that in fact he was not a great sage, which was just a fiction. The girl asked in surprise why he apologizes. The guy confessed to mislead her. Dito noted that she was indifferent whether the tour was a prominent sage. This in no way diminishes that the guy saved her life. That is why she believes that the guy is happy about her appearance. The tour wondered what the girl meant. Daita noted that the guy trusted her with her secret, so now her turn has come to open her own. She confessed that she had never done so. The tour was surprised to pay attention to the girl's outfit. In response, he was explained that it is quite familiar and nothing could be changed. The Elba lives for a long time, and their desires are very muted. The girl asked the boy only one thing. Nothing to say, Arya. The guy agreed, after which she said to turn to her child, and she would call his tour. The girl turned to the tour, noting that this room was full of things that even she, a representative of high elves, knows nothing. She wondered with interest that it was a room. The tour told that this room leads to another world. The Daito replied that it was neither a magical room nor a ghostly reality, and not in any way the royal wards. She did not even believe in the existence of another world. It seemed simply incredible for her. The young man confesses that he had no idea before the existence of another world. Dito confessed to the tour that all this seems confusing to him. She wondered in the tour why he spoke the language of the monster. When they met, the guy raised her suspicion. Tour explained what was speaking in his native country in this language. In their world, this language seemed to be considered monster. He was told that such resemblance was only a casual coincidence. Tours seemed incredibly strange. He could not squeeze how the Japanese language became the language of a monster in another world. According to him, it was Ria who spoke about it before. So the tour asked the girl, asking how she mastered the language of the monsters. Dito explained, all the monsters with reason, though the goblins, though orcs, speak this language during the battle. That is why the ability to understand the language of these creatures is a significant advantage. Many adventurers, when faced with similar monsters, try to find someone who speaks their language, but this does not always mean that such a person reads or writes in this language. The tour asked how they managed to understand. After all, the language, which Dito and Ria speak, is not at all like his own. Their language exists only in their world. When they said, the tour always heard their voices directly in their heads. Let me replied that it was a language of understanding. The tour asked what it means, understanding of understanding. Let me explain that it was the ability to translate the words of others through telepathy. Such a gift helps to communicate without difficulties with people from different countries, and sometimes other worlds, so its importance is difficult to overestimate. The tour understands that it is extremely convenient. Then Daieto returns to him. Turo decided that the girl was about to continue. Daieto shone with a smile and enthusiastically said that she was interested in looking into the world of boys. The young man quickly dresses in his clothes and without spending time removes it through the wall. Daito notes that it seems that she can only go through when she holds for a guy. The tour asks the girl to put on a hat and carefully hide her ears. There are no elves in this world, so if someone learns about its peculiarity, serious problems can arise. The child pulls the hat deeper on the eyes. Then the young man carefully asked her not to speak so loudly, because they did not use television. Then they go outside, and the girl shouts in surprise that this is the world of the tour, Japan. She was delighted to say it was just great. Suddenly a car flew past it. The girl was scared and shouted loudly. True immediately realized that the situation was threatened, and rushed sideways. He questioned, "Did I not warn you, should not talk so loudly?" Dito asked what it was, and why it was so scary. Even now there were many people on the roof. Not surprisingly, the local institution is very popular, so they decided to just walk around. They look at the tour and are interested in whether all these bright things can really be purchased. The young man nods. She complains that for some reason she has her eyes. They decide to linger by giving the girl time to get used to the dark. Attention to the details does not disappear. It is then that Taro draws attention to something unusual. He asks to wait for a wait, and he went aside to make an order. The seller extends him a candy with a banana stuffing. The tour is returned and notices how two young men approach the dart. They passionately told her a compliment, calling her pretty. They wondered what happened, because if she had any troubles, they will be happy to help. Daito began to boil with anger. The Aru approaches and apologizes, explaining that Daito is a foreigner and does not speak Russian. He asks if they need help. One of the guys replies that Daito already has a satellite, although her face shows that something seems like. After these words, the boys go away. Daito noted that these people are extremely annoying. Can you make a conversation with a stranger so lightly? Ruer extends the girl dessert and advises to eat it to cheer up. He gives her thin pancakes, sweet and incredibly tasty. The girl looked at the treat carefully and then seduced and bitten a piece. Suddenly her face was a smile, and she enthusiastically undertook dessert. The guy watched carefully. The girl apologized, confessing that she did not notice how she ate everything to the crumb. The tour gently wipes her face. He says with a smile that if she tastes so, let him eat how much he wants. The girl, barely hiding embarrassment, asks him not to make fun of him. The tour apologizes and confesses that she really liked it. Dito inflates his cheeks, murmur that the dish is not tasty, and it is revealed that it does not want to eat it at all. The tour asks whether that is true. He then adds that if she does not mind, he will gladly eat everything instead. He is already going to bite the piece, as suddenly notice the insightful look of Dito, which is chained to him. The tour assures that he has already eaten enough so he can share. Daito agrees with this. For a while, they reach the shopping center. Dito looks around and notes that many strange and unusual things are being sold here. She draws attention to her clothes and suddenly realizes that Arya is dressed in the same way. Dito notes that it has finally come. Tuer is wondering what the girl is clear. Kid says that they are trading here for villains. He really made her wear such clothes. The girl mockingly called him that Rue bed. He denied that Rue and assured that she was wrong. All this is only an experiment. Japanese food and traditional outfits have special properties in the dungeons. The child was surprised. The tour explained that he did not test the device on the clothes, but the food significantly increased the performance. Dito noted that clothes could increase the performance. The tour noted that Ria was still a little frightened to return to the dungeon. However, if she dares, he is ready to buy her outfit for her. The tour is convinced that these new things will fit her perfectly, and promises it with all confidence. Subsequently, they go shopping. Dito enthusiastically points out that Japan is striking. Stores here are spacious, dishes are incredibly tasty, and there are so many cool things around. Tora in response happily adds that it is very happy to hear how it likes it. They come to a house where Ria still is asleep. The tour with relief points out that everything was done without adventure. Edo nodded and confirmed that she was really sleeping firmly. Rue wondered Dito about Ria, asked if Dito did not feel disgusting. Dito just shrugged, confessing that Ria was annoying her good. There were many problems because of it, however. At least it was not a hypocrisy. Rue noted that then maybe it is worth trying to make friends with the river, not quarrel. However, Dito strictly denied, they say. This does not mean that she wants to become with her girlfriends. The young man asked her not to speak so because it is a great opportunity, especially now when they are under one roof. The child replied that she joins only when she has a good mood. The tour remembered how Ria said that children were avoiding any groups. He still failed to understand why the child decided to go down to the dungeon alone. Then Dito asked the tour to divide the bed with him that night. On which the tour reminded, they agreed differently. He spends the night on the bed in girls' living rooms. In response, Dito noticed with a smile that it was undoubtedly an interesting evening. The next morning it is a subturo. She reminds that the early morning, so the young man should get out of bed. The tour replied that it was too early and there was no work today, so he suggested that I sleep a little more. In response, Ria noted that if the guy continues to be lying in bed, it would have a bad effect on his health. She insisted that he finally woke up. The girl vigorously pushes the boy, insisting that he finally washed and brush his teeth. When he finishes, let him have breakfast. She's already prepared everything. The young man goes to the bathroom and notices a diet there. The guy notes that now it became clear to him why Ria was called an annoying knight. Edo asks whether that is true. After a while, the young man gently pours milk to the cup. Ria is wondered if it is all that kid asks whether it can be eaten, because there is milk. The guy advises to try, because there are also dried fruits. The girls taste the dish and enthusiastically mark its unsurpassed taste. Date is stamped, noting that she is surprisingly sweet and delicious. Ray replies that it is amazing how to prepare such a simple, and at the same time, an incredibly delicious dish. It is not for nothing that it is considered a prominent and experienced sage. The result is really impressive. After breakfast, he went to arrange his things as he moved to this subway station. The tour confessed to the river. He will remain in the room, and the girl can always call him if you need help. Ria assured that she would handle and asked the boy to believe in her. Left alone, the tour finally sighs with relief. Well, now it's time to take the case. He gets his computer. Dito is interested in the guy what it is. The tour replies that it is a computer monitor. It connects the device to the system unit and runs a computer. The guy notes that the computer is not broken and works properly. Dito replies that he can handle him too. However, everything he sees is just a blue screen. The tour adds that with the help of a computer, you can do a lot of exciting things, and especially interesting here, the internet. Suddenly, an image appears on the screen. The detail responds in surprise, not understanding what it means, and is enthusiastically asking whether she has been hidden there, the fairy. The young man noted that he was a singer. In addition, you can find a lot of interesting things here about other worlds. Dito, with enthusiasm, said that the Japanese inventions were striking. The tour in response assured that not only it can, he is sure that he was able to reproduce both the appearance and planning of the dungeon. Dito asked if he was really possible. The tour decided that there were several important things to check, and one of them was money. The guy asked Dito to show what the currency of their world looks like. Dito did not deny and asked him to wait a little. It fits with a small bag in your hands and calls for the tour to look inside. The tour is interested in the girl that she did with the beasts he won. Dito reminds it that they have agreed to hold on to the version of this story. The girl cannot reveal the details. The tour is calmed down, they say. He does not threaten anything yet. The guy then asked the gold coins. The girl nodded and explained that there were Gadius coins, imperial gold, and several more memorable specimens. The tour wondered if you could use these shopping coins. After that, he voiced his request. He asks the girl if she will not be against if he spends money on sweets and flashlights. The girl agrees, but here she is interested in whether the guy is sure that the currency from the other world is really in the course. The tournament is obvious that yes, undoubtedly. Ito allows him to take as much as you like, as a sign of gratitude for the suit. After all, if a guy is right about magical artifacts that increase characteristics, then such things here are even more rare than even the most valuable objects in the markets. They both wondered if they would not put this suit for a secret auction. In the meantime, he decided to take 1 coin of each species. The guy suddenly suggests a child to swim. Kido is surprised to ask if there is a bath here. What the rough confirms with a smile. The guy leaves the room and turns to Rei. The girl comes up and is interested in what happened. She carefully asks whether she would not be denied with Edo. Edo gets lost in surprise. She asks the guy to wait, explaining that she can handle the bathing on her own. Raya agrees and turns to Daido, promising to teach the girl all the intricacies of local bathing. Everything is quite different here. Daido is unwavering that he will be able to understand without assistance. Rei argued that it was too risky and she would not dare to go alone. The tour thought if he announced that he was leaving, the Deet would certainly follow him. Then Rei would stay beside her now. Dressing, he said that it was time to prepare. After some time, he finally gets to the bank. The girl at the registration rack reports that the total amount they can get is 106,400 yen. The tour is surprised to ask if they can really give such a significant amount. The girl smiles and confirms that it is possible. She noted that a small metal object costs 9,400 yen. But this is evaluated with a engraved face at 97,000 yen. The largest, probably covered with platinum gold. It is difficult to determine their true cost. It is necessary to carry out an additional check. So they can now offer the young man just that amount. As for the last metal, they are interested in whether they will be against it if they leave it for detailed study. When the true value of the finding is found, it will be notified. The young man replies that he does not need a medal. 2 coins are enough. Returning home, he thinks that these coins are worth the whole wealth. However, if they continue to study this find so carefully, sooner or later, it will certainly call. Frequent exchanges will also raise suspicion. However, he cannot spend even a few extra minutes on it. Now, having money, he can finally buy everything you need to make sure of his intentions. Last night, when Rei plunged into a dream, he and Dado went to the dungeon, trying to learn more about this mysterious world. It was there that the young man managed to increase his level. The tour boasts that he defeated the giant Fortnake. The girl replies with interest that she would like to look at her characteristics. Toru opens his status, and the child finally learns his real name. Suzuki Tour, however, decides to call the guy just a Tour. She also points out that he was 21 years old this year. In response, the Tour is interested in the age of the child, but she mysteriously promises to share this secret later. In addition, the girl finds out that the current profession of the boy remains a secret. The guy also has the ability to develop boundless development, although it is now only on the 4th level. Tor notes that this skill has been with him from the beginning. Dito admits enthusiastically, she has made a lot of effort to gain a similar skill. The Tour shines with joy. Dito notes that the life of the Tour is not long. There is a wonder that Date is interested in. Datoto explains that unlike elves, which their longevity allows you to grow constantly in levels, people are almost deprived of this opportunity. The likelihood of die without even reaching their maximum is extremely high for them. The size of the Tour. Give 2 that he did not just overcome the first-level beginner. In addition, beginners are hardly happy to come across such an opponent. He replied to this tour that he was just lucky. Dato noted that this status best illustrates the dynamics of youth development. A completely different matter is professional growth. In the case of young heroes, the absence of a specific profession indicates that all the ways are open, although there are no skills. Young people can choose any way: to become an attacker, to master magic, or to master the art of support. Further development depends solely on their own persistence. It is only necessary to make efforts. But for this he needs to increase his level and master a lot of crafts. The tour jokingly points out that it is time to check the girl's status, and reminds her to remove the mantle so that he can appreciate what was hidden under her. The girl removes the robe while staying in a swimsuit. She became aware of the boy to stop so carefully at her, confessing that she is very ashamed. The girl looked carefully at her characteristics and noted that her defense jumped at 200 units, and the maximum level also increased. Here the tour said with interest that I would also like to see it. He recorded the girl's features, noting her age, 211 years. Daito explained that the elves are able to live 1,000 years, which in the human dimension is approximately 20. The guy noted that his grandfather almost reached his level. She objected to her grandfather, saying that he was wrong. She has long crossed the border of her forces, but as soon as she had put on this swimsuit, her capabilities seemed to have expanded. It is strange that clothing made of such elastic fabric can provide such a high level of protection. She assures that these things are simply incredible. Kido expressed confidence that these shorts also have a special property. She decided to change clothes to make sure. The tour was surprised that something like this is happening here and now. Dito asked the young man for a moment to turn away. The girl dressed, but never realized why it was happening. She noted that even without a swimsuit, its level restriction remained unchanged. The guy wondered what she meant. The ATO explained this. It is not about the swimsuit. The thing is not in it. The level did not rise alone. This has never happened. The tour was surprised. Give it that the impact of unlimited level remains unknown. However, she is convinced that the cause is completely different. The lips of the Dito and the tour touch each other slightly. The tour is stunned and asks what has just happened. Daito confirms that she was right. Her conclusions were accurate. The tour is again questioned what is the matter, and suddenly pays attention to the girl's clothes. She frozen in place. She became embarrassed and apologized to the boy, and he just waved, saying nothing wrong, and asked what had happened. Daito noted that after certain actions of her level, she somehow rose. She checked and saw that the figure has grown. Now the value was 49. It seems that anyone who kisses the boy has the ability to develop unlimited development. Then the guy asked if such endless growth was really possible. Daki Toa recalled that she had never heard about it before. The fact is that the guy was born in this world, or a thing in the very nature of this skill. The tour noted that there is no short description of the ability. Two's Roofs explained. Some skills are hidden. They could only be seen for significant recognition or respect. It was known to her. The tour is surprised to ask whether the girl hints that he has some special abilities. And not only. After that, the guy turns to Dito, wondering what she is doing now. In response, Dito, smiling, notes, "Don't you see? She dreams of kissing you." The tour is uncertainly asks the girl to calm down. Dito asks the boy if he really would not want to help the girl increase her maximum level. She has already lived for many decades, unable to grow even stronger. No one could tell how many monsters she won on the way to her power. However, even in spite of his efforts, she still failed to match people whose level was higher. Turo just apologized, lowering his eyes. They really noticed that she would never kiss the one who did not like her, even for the sake of raising his level. Such an act would be too bold for her. The guy was surprised and sincerely rejoiced in hearing these words from the girl. Dito noted that the tour was only about the river. She explained that the reason is that the guy would sympathize with her more than Dito. But the tour noted that he could not confirm it. He confessed that Date liked no less than Ray. It was a lot of surprise, Date. The tour apologized, recognizing his helplessness and excessive lightness. Dito wondered, what if he chose Ray? And what will happen in 80 years when Ri is no longer? Will he then be with another girl? She asked the tour, trying to understand her words. In 80 years, Ria will leave this world. But he will die for a long time, she added quietly, well assured that there is a way to prolong human life. However, this requires a certain condition. The tour wondered whether there was a way to extend life. He asked Daido to talk about it in more detail. Daido replied that this method is considered a lord of a maze, a true owner of the dungeon. The next day of the tour again twisted at work in a restaurant. He sighed heavily, feeling fatigue, and mentally noted how confusing everything. Last night, the young man was interested in the owner of the dungeon. Daido nodded in agreement and noted that thanks to this skill, the young man would be able to become a full-fledged dungeon. Although it is considered a skill, it is impossible to gain it with a normal level. Dito explained that the only way is to get the deepest level, find the lord there and personally get this ability. The tour wondered whether the acquisition of skills on life. Dortor replied that the guardian of the dungeon did not know the aging. Tudora was in surprise and wondering whether it means immortality. But Dortor explained, although the years are not powerful, death can still pick it up. Bishops live in this dungeon, which is known as Yomi. They are able to choose the heirs themselves, but those who wish can also challenge them to a duel to gain the right to become a new dungeon. That Rue answered that now he understood everything, and then asked how to get to him. Daida explained that first you need to climb to the top floor, and noticed that to defeat the owner of the dungeon, it would take a lot of experience. However, the young man should overcome the enemy as soon as possible, otherwise he will be ahead of cruel monsters, or relentlessly removed old age. If you think sober, it looks absolutely unrealistic. She invites the boy to imagine as if it took 100 years to achieve such a level of skill. But the Tudora immediately answers. The tour assured that these are only ordinary levels, and they will cope with it. There is one way to overcome this obstacle. Dito suggested that they just have to destroy the monster. Dito noted that the idea is truly exciting, but Turo expressed doubt, and suddenly she won't work? The girl noted that it is quite possible. For the most part, adventure seekers perceived monsters as an obstacle, which should be overcome for their own development, and therefore they did not even think about the reproduction of these creatures. They did not think that the monsters could be even faster than cows or pigs. The tour noted that in relation to the increase in the number of monsters, they will be able to track their condition through its computer at the right time, switching off the traps installed earlier to destroy these creatures in a timely manner. So, they will be able to safely increase their level without risking their own safety while in this room. Daido was enthusiastically noted that it was amazing, and then asked what ended all her efforts in the last 200 years. Ryu replied that in any case you can try to increase the level in this way. The Diet supported him, noting that they would definitely work. Tudu admitted that, despite his words, he was not ready for something unknown, not even imagining what it could be. Daido, looking at the guy in surprise, wondered what he was in mind. The tour notes that it is not known whether it is really good to live a life longer than others. Does this mean that the girl will always be near him? Diado replied. They will continue to travel together, travel different worlds, look for adventures, taste amazing dishes and enjoy new impressions. She is sure that everything will be fine. Tor assured that this is a great idea. Then he confessed that he had never managed the dungeons. He was unbearable to think that the creatures that were subordinate to him were harmful to people. The girl noted that adventurers do the same with the monsters, but if it is really disgusting, they can try to find another solution. Ito added that, among other things, if he suddenly gets bored with the role of the master of the dungeon, the young man will always be able to convey this honorary mission to someone else. At least, there is an opportunity. The tour shared his intention to get to the most remote and complex corners of the dungeon. He hopes that there will be no difficulty on the way, because of the emergence of a new dungeon. After working for a while, the tour thought, despite all his words, he remained a regular poor young man. He considers fun that he left the work and took up the role of the lord of the dungeon. Suddenly Tashi approaches Suzuki. She reports that the dish in the oven is ready and adds that it has another order. The young man apologizes to the girl, promising to put everything right away. The girl agrees, looks at him. In her eyes there is a noticeable concern. Some time has passed, and the guy finally returns home. Ria with Diado gladly welcome him. Diado complains that he is late, they say. He has long wanted to eat. Turo apologizes and reports that he has brought home food today. So their dinner is ready. Ro did not hide his astonishment. The tour said that he had moved to another country, and, as the girl sees, took with him hotels, goodies as a gift. Reprince comes out and exclaims in surprise that it is the same hamburger that they tasted earlier, only now with 2 buns. The guy confirmed that this dish was just called a hamburger. Ray from Diato tasted burgers and immediately acknowledged, the taste is just wonderful. Daita with delight noted that the circles were just wonderful, and Ray fully supported her. The tour opened the door and quietly asked the nozzle to take one burger and snack. The girl thanked the boy, sincerely grateful for his care. Kid enters the room. She turns to the tour and is wondering whether he really hides the gentleman from Ria. Turo replies that he saved the river when she almost died in the dungeon, being quite paralyzed. She suffered a strong blow. The monster scared her, so now the Skizuk may seem threatening to her. Diato noticed in surprise that Ria was paralyzed in solitude. The tour is confirmed by this, adding that she was lost without his comrades and still left without her sword. Daita noted that, as she predicted, suddenly a loud sound broke. Suddenly, Raya ran into the room and, in surprise, asked the tour of a strange sound. Also surprised was Dito. It was at this moment that the tour closed the cabinet door. The tour assured that everything is under control and there was no reason to excite. He finds peace and begins to speak. Reet returns to the excursion, embarrassed by looking back. To steal the girl who was to hide, a mysterious dark magician suddenly appeared. It is a great stunning girls. The girls wondered again by a mysterious dark magician. The tour replied that they should hide inside. But suddenly a voice came in silence. Someone insisted on talking with the guy about the agreement. Ray wondered the content of the agreement and asked if it had to do with magic. She turned to the tour, asking whether he would handle it alone. Turo supported the girl, proudly noting that he was no wonder he is a prominent sage. After that, he quietly advised the girls to go to the room. Dayato suggested that Ria entrust this tour and hurry to the room. The tour noted that he would try to handle as soon as possible, and expressed his hope that the guest would not be delayed. A man appeared on the threshold. Introducing as a messenger from Nenki, he added with a smile, "Boy, you can call me just an enemy." He asked the boy if he really moved recently. Now the right moment is to discuss the conditions of the cable connection. The tour noted that you cannot just go, so if you were at home. And then he became clear. He forgot to lock the door when he came. Turi noted that he did not have a TV, he has enough internet. The man asked if the guy really hopes he would believe in the absence of a TV, because there is more than enough space in the room. He assured the tour that he did not invent. There is really nothing here. The man apologized for the inconvenience and began to penetrate the house. He assured that if there is no TV on the tour, no problems will arise. Checking the guy's house will take very little time. The tour was recounting that he had already warned. It was impossible to go to another's home. He clarifies the man whether he really considers the norm to appear in someone's home without permission. The tour could not understand what was happening to this man. Despite the fact that he raised his level and had to become stronger, the stranger easily pushed him away from himself. Suddenly Ray appeared and asked her husband why he was rushing from the tour. And suddenly she pushed her husband so much that he was thrown away. He turned to Ria, assuming that the girl was probably hiding somewhere. She pushed the boy back. The young man, worried, wondered if everything was fine with her husband. Tour noted himself. From Ri, it was quite expected, given her remarkable skill in hand-to-hand combat. He sincerely hoped that the man remained alive. Fortunately, the stranger was awakened, and moaning with pain, regretted that he was very painful. He stood up and smiled, saying that although it was not too noticeable, but he was a superson at 9th rank. And by the way, the blow recognized quite powerful. The tour was lost. The rank of 9 sounded terribly for him. The man exclaims that, judging by how the guy tries to avoid checking, TV technique is precisely hidden here. The tour noted that there was no TV here. Suddenly, Dato appears and strikes a man with lightning magic for a moment, immobilizing him. The man falls down. The child reassured the boy, assuring that nothing wrong had happened. She just applied the spell to shake his consciousness a little. The man gradually comes to his senses. Dito was amazed at the incredible mobility of this man. He smiles and notes that even for him it was unexpected, hinting, "Is it all because of statistical electricity?" Tours do not give rest to another question. Is this person at all? The man put his hand on his shoulder and said that he should check the TV in any case. The tour was surprised to ask if the guest was still wanting to look at his home. The tour sighs and allows the man to look at his home. He realizes that he is not going to go, and if the situation is complicated, the tour will not hesitate to kill him. However, a man assures that nothing wrong. He begins to look carefully at the young man's apartment, carefully studying his every corner. It appears everywhere. He notes that there is no TV here. Further, the man adds that he has not yet examined the locked rooms. The tour asked him to wait a little. The man wondered what it was, and whether he really hid the TV here, as he imagined before. Instead, The tour suspected that the books he hid from the girls were hidden behind this door. The tour of the Whisper explained the man's cause of his anxiety, and he laughed. He assured that it is quite natural for an unmarried man to have 1 or 2 dozen such magazines. He encouraged the guy not to worry and promised that his collection would remain completely safe. The tour did not hide astonishment. Therefore, Tuar asks the girls first to leave the room. He is convinced that Sikuka will not try to hide. Ray was worried about whether everything would be fine, because they were gumwars. Are they not seeking dark magicians to seize them? But Turris reassured her, they say, there was no reason to excite, and asked to be allowed to act at his own discretion. For a while, the man returns upset and sighs, they say, there is really no TV. He just shrugged the tour. He warned from the very beginning. The man replies that he is not going to give up. He will stay here until the Suzuki bought a TV. Turo notes, if he decides to come, let him make sure he will be in place. He is even scared to imagine what will happen if he is not around at the time of his man's arrival. The man goes, and the tour with annoyance notes that these people with NNK are incredibly annoying. He notes that the second day is devoted to reading forbidden books. The young man notices that the man, having rushed here, did not return anything to his place. The girl closes the book slightly, gently covering the pages. She assures that she hid them a little away. If Ria comes across it, nothing good will work. Instead, she asks the boy to give her reading him when he has a free minute. She wants to find out what the tour wants, and the tour suggests that Daita seeks to bring to life what is depicted in this book. Then he suddenly envelops the feeling that something important has slipped out of sight. When the army left, he chose the balcony door to exit, completely ignored the main entrance. He remembers it. The man returns the real size, because it was not possible to sign the agreement. Suddenly, he is surprised. Where did he find himself? He suddenly realizes how dark it is here. The look is in vain wandering, not distinguishing anything in solid darkness. The man turns on the flashlight on the phone and suddenly realizes he should be in the hallway. Maybe it's a spare exit. R and N open heavy iron doors. Suddenly, an unexpected acquaintance appears on his way. At that moment, the tour appears in the dungeon and turns to the Enam. The man begins to ask someone whether he has a subscription or contract. Others do not understand what is being discussed. He is clearly released by some strange replicas. Concerned, people decide to go back. The man follows them without a step. The tour suddenly realizes that the Anami has just left the monsters in the dungeons. He must immediately rush after that man. He has no doubt that he will be able to cope with snails, but meeting with a giant centipede room can turn into a real trouble. Barney noted that they always feel completely safe when Arya is behind, as if they were standing behind an indestructible stone wall. But when she is ahead, he himself has to take all the blows, although he is not a master in defense. Of course, after she notes that Rhea did not bring her sword with her, and the tour is not strong enough for the battle is too dangerous. The tour is addressed to the guy with an alarming question that awaits him. Dido insists she will leave alone. Dido says that the right moment came, because she was just thinking about the return. Since the boy's house settled, she has been worried about doubts that demanding clarification. The boy needs gold coins to buy something. She promises to bring a few to him, and also adds that Anna will capture some coins. Tori turned to Dito in surprise. The girl was in a hurry to reassure him and asked not to frown. She promised that she would soon return. The tour replied that he had understood everything, and given the circumstances, he suggested helping her to put things up. After a while, the guy stretches the grill with a package, assuring that there is food, drinks, and even a cosplay suit inside. Daita thanked him sincerely. The young man asked the girl to return alive and intact. Dido answered that there was no doubt. After all, they promised each other to live together. She also promised to bring Anami. You only need to close the door and wait for the monitor to work. The guy agreed. The girl smiled. The iron door closed with a deft knock. Ray expressed his hope that Date would return soon. The tour was supported by her opinion. Ray also mentioned Inami, expressing the hope that everything would do well and nothing would happen. A week has passed since Diato disappeared underground, and so suddenly a call came, and 2 figures appeared on the roof, as if having emerged from nowhere. The tour apologizes and explains that his hands are now busy, so could they open the door themselves? After the case, he realized that even if the bone appears, he could not open the door from the inside because they are connected to the dungeons. The courier enters the room and reports that the young man has just received the parcel. He asks the guy to sign for receipt. He quickly signs and thanks the courier. He sighs heavily, and finally reports that the box has arrived. Ria is wondering what it really is. The tour states that these things are unique artifacts. He has already spent all the money proceeds from the sale of coins. But with this thing in his hands, he will finally be able to revive the dungeon. First, install the camera and recorder, then connect the cables to them. The tour asks to pay attention to the screen. The girl agrees. She looks at the screen and takes the camera. The girl is surprised by noticing on the monitor the young man. The tour asks her about it. Raya replies that she just saw a room with tatami, as the tour suddenly appeared there. The young man noticed that the camera was really functioning. He noted that at least she should work. Now another dilemma has arisen. How to draw cables to the dungeon. Since he rents an apartment, drilling walls is not allowed. But to leave the door open constantly is also not an option. There is only one possible option in his head. He notices the pipe from the air conditioner stretching in the direction of the entrance. Probably this way can come out. It will break the hole so that the cable can be pulled. And he himself believes that nothing is happening here. The young man reports that he is going to go down underground, but promises to return quickly. Ray nods as a sign of consent. Having caught the dungeon with a vigilant look, he points out that if there is a connection between them, there should be a cable somewhere. However, there are no traces of it. He says it just can't be. Was it all in vain? Then the young man assures that it is too early to lose hope. This room has a connection with both dungeons and with apartments. If you open the door from the inside, you get into the dungeon. If you open them from the outside, the entrance leads to the apartments. If the door is closed, what do they lead to? Even before he had managed to open them, he heard an invisible connection in the voice. So, in other words, these doors lead to the apartment. If it opens the door from the inside and leaves them open, it is possible that it will just bring them to the dungeon. It is possible that this pipe leads directly to the dungeon. The tour again stated that he went to the dungeon. Suddenly he notices a stretched wire on the wall. He also captures the camera and connects it. Now it is only necessary to make sure that the cable will not disconnect when it will close the door. The young man quickly runs to the computer and asks the Aryas what happened to the camera. The monitor before his eyes opens a view of the dungeon. The wire is still attached on the other side. The guy happily reports that they have happened. Ria admits that she did not quite realize how it happened, but sincerely rejoices with him. Subsequently, Torea began to adjust other cameras. He placed them before entering the spacious open area, and also in front of the iron door. In addition, some left in other corners. Raya assures that the guy will be able to watch everything that is happening in the dungeon without leaving the room. The guy agrees to this idea. Ria notes that this is probably the magic of the highest level, capable of seeing long distances. The fact that the young man has a similar artifact is striking. And, as it should be expected, the tour is really a prominent sage. He goes to Laf Taru and notes that it is too early for surprise. In the end, the most interesting part of the reconstruction of the dungeon will start from a completely different event. In his hands, he squeezes some extremely strange device. You carefully considered this device. Ray asks the young man if he really plans to install it in the dungeon. He confirms and adds that he will place everything at the iron door. The tour believes that this is the so-called hand robot. He purchased it almost like a regular toy, but hopes that it is quite capable of clicking the button, opening or closing the iron door. He is denied everything that handling your hand is possible with a computer. Then the young man sits at the computer and starts working focused. Exhaled, he confesses that only recently began to master the programming. So writing the code for moving the hand up and down took a lot of time and effort. In this activity, he did not even notice how Ria, who from the very beginning expressed a desire to help, fell asleep. He finds a girl extremely sweet when she sleeps. However, this does not matter in all circumstances. His plan will remain unchanged. He clicks the mouse button, and the iron hand opens the door. The tour remembered how last time he decided to crush the giant fortune, head with an iron door, but it seems that he didn't do it to the end. As soon as he turned, he saw that the torso of a creature was already cut off. If it were a weaker monster, death would come instantly. It was only necessary to collapse on the head of the Sora Konoga, and that would clearly end it. He calls the monster. On the monitor, he notices the mucus slowly crawls closer. The guy presses the button. The door is closed, ruthlessly crushing the snail. The young man believes that his idea has worked, and decides to move on. For a while, he confesses that the things were bad. His idea was only successful with the first monster, and then nothing happened. Since then, many snails have penetrated here, but most of them have been able to leave the room before the door closed. It seems that the protagonist will have to overcome all those snails who have already managed to shy through the door. Some time has passed and it finally appeared. He notices several snails near the body. It becomes clear to him that these creatures are attracted to the dead centipedine. Since the corpse is almost completely digested, it is worth thinking about a new bait. If you only use this method to attract snails, their level will not increase. He invents something so exciting that other monsters will like much more than snails. It is so lure that they will not pay attention to the traps. He decides that it's time to go shopping a little. The tour goes outside, turning into the spine. The girl enthusiastically points out that the store is huge and simply dazzling with her glitter. The tour decides that if you want to know that the most like the monsters, you just need to ask them. Therefore, he appeals to the Sinsuk to reincarnate into his clothes. The guy offers her, if something falls to her way, just tell him about it. Shizuke smiles and promises to be genuinely trying to be frank. Looking at the bright storefronts, Shizuke admired enthusiastically that everything seems incredibly delicious here. The guy explains that for the monster, people are just meat when they attack. The Shizuke confesses that she also likes the dishes that the owner chooses for treat. The tour cannot hold back a smile. The Shizuke seems to him extremely sweet. He adds that monsters enjoy Japanese cuisine, so he decides to buy a little from every dish. He decides to buy fruits, vegetables, meat, and a variety of snacks to taste each of these tastes. He turns to the Shizukuku and states that, since he called it, he now bought for her everything she wants. Shinsuku is distrustful whether it is true. She then states she wants to get a collar. The tour asks whether she really wants it to wear a collar, because the mucous membranes have no neck. Shinsuke replies that he will have to wear it when he acquires human likeness. In a thin book, it was written, "If the pet carries a pillar donated by the owner, it testifies to his genuine commitment." The tour acknowledged that the Sish really reminds him of a pet, but a collar on a person is too much. He was angry with thought for himself that his imagination instantly drew river. The tour advises the girl this time to choose something else, because he suspects that the gentleman has drawn from these books not at all what it is necessary. The girl agrees. After that, the tour looks at the store, thinking about the animals. He is wondering if these products can be used as a bait. For a while, he returns to the dungeon. The young man carefully plays food and reports that he will leave the dishes right at the door. Then he decides to pour cat food. If you use this trick, all monsters will come to the bait and rush inside. Shinsuke with delight notes what is the appetizing aroma and is wondering what it is. The tour explains, it is a dish for animals. If a girl like you like this taste, then other monsters will surely like. The night has already dropped to the city. The tour is assigned to the computer and finally dared to open the door. The iron door opened with a glow. The tour could not believe his eyes. Such just could not happen. On the threshold, there were a huge centipedal and giant mouse, and ghostly mushrooms were mounted behind them. To all, numerous snails crawled everywhere. It seemed that the smell of cat food lured here almost all the animals. He decides to close the door and orders the monsters not to leave the place. The doors are closed, and the tour exclaims joyfully, "It seems everything turned out." His level has also increased. Shizuke was enthusiastically informed the owner that it was truly impressive. He decided to go down to the dungeon to see everything in his own eyes. Subsequently, the guy learned that his level had increased by 2, and he overcame all the enemies. It was then that he noticed a little exceptional. If there is no direction in the work section, it means that he will not succeed. This is what Daida warned him before. The guy thinks whether it is possible to view other people's statuses in this way. On the occasion, he will definitely test it on Ray. If he continues to train and increase his level, he will be able to win even a huge scolopendron with one blow. It can be confidently argued that the mouse click is equated here to a real attack. Some time has passed and the guy decides to renew the bait. He returns home, sits at a computer with a firm intention to continue to pump his character. However, casting his gaze on the phone, she realizes that he is already deep night. The tour recalls that his fabric begins at 9 in the morning, and thinks about whether it is not necessary to take a little. However, he decides to stand up again, and give the monsters a battle, and then go to bed. The guy notes that the danger was quite close. They barely survived, saving at the last moment. Then the young man decides to make another attempt. After a few hours at work, the young man looked exhausted and crumpled. Despite the sleepless night, he finally got work, and his level increased significantly. Suddenly, Titi turned to the young man and asked him to cook a salad quickly. Turo realized that it was necessary to urgently increase your level. Unfortunately, decorating the salad is unlikely to help him. If it was possible to raise the level simply working, it seems that he was once a passionate video game. Already at home, the guy is looking for free software and automatic clicks on the computer. He is surprised by so many programs. Computer games have special programs that allow you to automatically raise the level and get objects. They are called bots. For the use of bots in the game, you may be able to make you. But here, in the dungeon, there is no one who controls it. The personal insertion of the code could give better results, but it has only 24 hours, and given the work and sleep, the productivity will be completely different. So he decides to download the program. Again, he comes to the tour and is wondering what it is. The guy explains that he can control the iron door through this device, to open and close them effortlessly from this room. The girl is surprised to be surprised by his ability. Raya exclaims enthusiastically that it is just incredible. Meanwhile, the tour recalls that Rhea was the first to sleep last night, so she is not aware of the trap. Rhea was sincerely surprised that the young man was capable of such an act. Ray called the tour with a prominent sage. She assured that even having defeated all the monsters, he was able to reach the highest level. In response, the young man noted that, from the point of view of the researcher, the increase in the population of monsters will only contribute to the adventure. This approach was surprised by Ray. She did not expect it. At the heart of the tour, he was convinced that he was still far from his maximum. Tuber decides to set a gap for a car. The function is activated after 20 minutes and only 2. This is now their plan. It leaves everything as it is to see if you can raise the level. The tour recognizes the tour. Here seems to be his boundary. He apologizes to the river, says he was moving and going to take a nap. Rhea is wondering if he can look at the monitor then. The tour does not deny, but notes that it is too boring. However, Rhea confesses that she is actually captured by the artifact of the tour. Rue agrees and says Rays that she will be able to track what monsters were defeated. The girl agrees and wishes him pleasant dreams. For a while he shouted again. Turo gets and asks what happened. Rhea replies, an orc and a dark magician appeared on the monitor. A familiar man returns, leading an orca next to him. Ray emphasizes, the screen shows the orca along with a dark magician. The young man wipes his eyes and wonders what happened to a dark magician. After that, Inam asks the Mayan why he is a half-naked pet for pets. Suddenly the door is closed. The tour is scared, seeing the heavy iron doors began to fall. Frightened, he feverishly clicking, pushing the button again and again, as if in a panic hoping to change something. Panic Tour is rushing away, shouting that something should be done immediately. He breaks into the dungeon and calls the Anami loudly. A man is called to his call, noting that a lot of time has passed since their last meeting. Anam is wondering if this young man could buy a TV. In this case, it is necessary to enter into a contract. He denies the tour. He did not buy TV and proposes to solve everything later. Instead, the man asks why the tour suddenly shouted so loudly. The tour asked the man to look. He nodded. They said he understood, but knew. As soon as he turned away, the guy immediately squeezes the delicious treats, which they with Mr. Orchid were so carefully found. He would not buy them. The tour stated that a man was wrong. This animal food is a trap. Therefore, he calls for a man to rise up. Having gained his gaze, Anam notices the door, which is opened, then closed at the top. Aeneas advises the orca to retreat, but he is interested in what has happened and adds that he wants delicious food. Anami notes that this deliciousness is just a treacherous trap. The orc agrees with the guy, stating that he also wants to believe. They are already going. Turi views its size and assures that now everyone is safe. However, it suddenly rolls fatigue for no apparent reason. And suddenly it comes to him that Anahi returned to the dungeon again. He clicks the button, convincing himself that he can still return the Anam. With River, he believes, he probably manages to overcome the wall behind the iron door. He reaches out to the girl, urging to join him. Rhea agrees without hesitation. Suddenly it loses balance and falls. The tour notices how her body is barely noticeable. The day the Dado appears in the next moment. She is interested in the tour and Rhea that brought them here. The tour replies that Dido has just passed by Anami. Dido mentions this name and notes that the tour implies that Japanese. The guy reminds the girl that she just forgot about it. She in response claims that she knows everything. The D-Tote replies that she carefully gathered information about the Anam, because rumors were rumored in the guild. The tour is interested in what the girl means. The D-tote looks at the river and notes that the conversation can be continued in the room. A little time has passed, and this, drinking a sip when with a smile, notes that after such a long break, this drink simply tastes unmatched. Turo is interested in rumors that are spreading the city. In response, Dito says that in the Adventure Guild, the bar is discussing a strange stranger who is constantly approaching visitors and prompts to conclude a television contract. The tour is interested in the Adventure Guild. Raya explains that since the tour is already retired, he may not be known to him. The maze Jopi is controlled by Francis and subordinate to this guild. Most of the guild branches have their own bars there. Tarius nods as a sign of understanding and explains that there is only one such organization in the game. Ray adds that there is even a task in the game, the purpose of which is to destroy the Anam. The tour is surprised to ask what to liquidate. Is it about murder? Daida suggests that it is probably so, because the task belongs to the Erang and the reward for it is small. Ray adds that because of how powerful this creature is, it is unlikely to be so meaningless to risk hunting with a warrior rank and for a meager reward given to E-True's ranking rank. Dito notes that if an adventurer will come across Nam, he will only be pressed from one. Even if the adventurer does not burn the desire to do it, the signed contract on which he insists will gradually begin to annoy. The tour is concerned about it is not good, and asks if you can somehow make the situation. Dito invites young people to think about it. Guide notes that they can apply for a guild with a higher reward if they are able to send it alive. The tour is wondering if a girl is capable of such. Dito suggests that the guy may want to meet with those who first gave him a task. She does not see this obstacle, because this person seems to be only dreaming that Amy leaves. Tori notes that he would do the same, because he will certainly turn it back into this world. He apologizes to Dito and wonders if a girl can visit the Guild of Adventurers. Dito is angry with a guy if he realizes that she had just returned from there. The tour confesses that he is well aware of how much he asks. The tour insists that he cannot leave the Empa, and with a hot request appeals to Dito. Dito assures that he will leave if the tour joins it. The guy will be surprised to ask if she really wants to travel with him, because she considered it too dangerous last time. However, Dito notes that during this time the guy has strengthened significantly. She is convinced that Ria and Ria near him is nothing threatening. The girl questioned whether she should go too. She confesses that without a sword she will only interfere with others. Date, laughing, pulls the wrapped package from behind. The girl pulls the package and, smiling mysteriously, is interested in Ray, which, in her opinion, inside. Turo is surprised to ask whether she really brought something from the dungeon. The child adds, they say, this surprise is intended for Ray. Dito unfolds the package, and with a smile states that it is either a valuable thing or a sword. She extends a gift, noting that it is something very expensive. However, Ria Penix politely refuses, they say, cannot accept such a valuable gift. Dito calmly replies that everything is fine, and asks the RI to just put up with it. In any case, even if she wanted to use the sword, she would not work. In addition, Dito adds, without weapons, Raya could not even step on the dungeon. Ray thanks the girl and assures that he will definitely return the money. Ada is just waving. Everything is fine, she took a little. Ray nods silently in response. The tour happily reports that now everyone will go to the dungeon. Ria is surprised to ask if they are really going to go there right now. The tour notes that the girl should prepare, so they will go on the road tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Dito replies that she has just returned and wants to relax a little. In response, the tour says that since the decision has already been made, it should maximize its level before departure. Dito goes to the tour, asking whether the trap, which the guy was mentioned and raises the level, is ready. The guy enthusiastically confirms it and assures that he wants to show his work to the girl. The guy demonstrates the girl's device. Dito notes in surprise that from this place the guy sees the dungeon. The tour agrees and adds that the girl manages to see something straight in front of the door. The girl is wondering if it is garbage. Turo explains that it is feed for pets, cats and dogs. It attracts monsters perfectly. After that, Tour decides to open the iron door. The girl asks what is happening. The guy offers her just to watch, and at that moment a large centipede appears. Dito explains that it is a giant scolopendra, and emphasizes that they need to overcome it before she attacks. The tour is calming the girl, asking not to panic. After that, he roams the door loudly. The tour reports that he has increased his level, and Dito stunned with such ease of change. The tour confirms, adding that everything is automatically happening. It can even pump in a dream. However, he notes, it is dangerous. And when the Anna was around, he could not afford it. Diado is interested in the tour, what he is now. The tour replies that the 9th, although actually reached the 10th. The girl is amazed and asks, "Are you really at the 10th level?" The tour confesses that he did not face his eyes all night to increase his level. Due to the work that occupied all day, he felt exhaustion. The detail baked, upset, and shouting that it was dishonest. To reach the 10th level, she had to fight fierce fights with monsters, risking her life, and it took a long time. Turo orders the Diado to go through the same severe trials. The child looks confused and is interested in what to do next. The tour shows that you should move this mouse, put the arrow on the mark, and press the index finger. Dito states that it is incredibly funny. Suddenly, having announced her victory, she hears the two Rui River. The tour asked what happened. Arya replied that a lot of time had passed since she last held a sword in her hands. She confessed that she would like to practice the technique that these weapons taught it before going to the dungeon. Turo approves this idea and asks with interest if he can see. Rei apologizes, explaining that she wanted to work alone to focus completely. She acknowledges that she did selfishly. Turo is assured that everything was fine and asked the child not to press. The kid immediately obeyed. Subsequently, the tour reported that he would return in about an hour, and by that time the girl is not allowed to go to the room. She nodded, making it clear that she understood everything. The guy quietly closes the door and approaches the skids. In a light voice, he asks her for one service. Shizuke looks at him and asks, "What do you need?" Tori advised Shizuke, "Just in case, watch the RIA through the camera, and if he can remember her movements. After all, if a Shizuku, which is able to reproduce every gesture, begins to control his body, he will automatically imitate the girl's actions." Shizuku assured that she understood everything, and promised to make every effort. Tu replies that he will go to buy something for dinner, then asks the girls if they will be able to oversee the house. The girls agree and wish him a successful road. A little time has passed, and the tour is enthusiastically telling how he finally allowed himself a luxury. He acquired wonderful meat. Because Dito returned, he decides to prepare a great suchiya. Soon the guy opens the door and happily reports, "I'm home." Suddenly, a child in a chimney appeared with an excited look. They reported that something was wrong. The tour asked what happened and why the girls were so worried. Suddenly the news comes, Rei is faint in the dungeon. Once upon a time, one girl sincerely thanked Rei for becoming part of the Kacha family. But in response, Raya modestly noted that she did not deserve such warm words. The girl noted that she is no longer a farmer, so he may no longer be kept in her behavior. Rei is silent, and the girl hugs her firmly. She said that they were growing almost a year old and growing up since childhood, so Raya became her a real sister. Hearing this, Ria did not hide her surprise. Monica asked Rija not to make such a sad expression of the face. After all, she goes on the road today, so Monica wants the girl to smile and say goodbye to her. Monica added that it was nothing compared to the dedication shown by the Eldrax house, but she would like the girl to accept this sword. For a while, Ray slowly opens his eyes and comes to her senses. It gets out of bed, and he is staring in his own palms. At that moment, Dieto reassured the tour, assuring that all is well. There were no visible damage on the girl's body, and breathing and pulse remained within normal limits. Tara finally exhaled with relief. He asked the girls why Ria fell. Suzuki replied that they had supervised her. Raya was holding a sword, suddenly froze on the spot, and in a moment she fainted. Daito noted that it is most likely to be a deep psychological trauma. The tour told about the soulful wounds, and added that, as he suspected, she was probably afraid of the dungeon. He suggested that if Rios came out with a sword armed, then nothing would happen to her. However, Daito denied. This is a misconception. Ria decided to go alone to overcome her own fear. If it is really psychological trauma, then it will probably be much better for Raya to stay here, safely, and gradually heal your emotional wounds. DT notes that perhaps Ria will not be able to recover completely from the experience. Such words are quite impressive. He is genuinely surprised. The tour is interested in the girl, what caused it. Dito notes that in the Adventure Guild, rumors were spreading not only about the Anami. She adds that there was another story, and if it were true, the problem would be much more serious. Turo is surprised to ask whether this suspicious rumor had a relationship with Ria. He asked the child what happened. He felt something awkward, but suddenly Raya appeared and stated that he had to tell him something. This caused them a real surprise. She wondered the girl if she could get up in that condition. Raya assured that everything was fine and apologized for care. Dino added that it is not necessary to force himself and talk about it if she does not feel need. Ray replied that she had to tell him about it. She really wanted Dito and the tour to listen carefully to her story. A little time has passed, and everyone was already at the table. Ria spoke the first. Before telling why she became, they first needed to find out why she chose the path of adventure. She was born in the Eldrax family, a kind of military aristocrats that has served the K-Chef's house for generations. The duty of their family was to lead the knights of the noble kind of Katya. However, the Eldrax family did not have a single son, so Rhea became the head of the house. But at the time of her birth, Katya's home lasted endless drought, which caused serious economic difficulties. Surprisingly, Katya's family came to light exclusively girls. The head of the family, Eldrax, though a woman, was only forgiven because their blood did not belong to the nobility. But even when everything was destroyed and fate turned against them, the family would not agree to allow the woman to lead the genus. The poverty became their everyday life, and the heir never appeared. In the end, the generic line broke off. The last representative of the Cadialine, Monica Katya, married the duke. The history of this family ended. At 16, Monica had to become a duke's bride. Before that, she gave the family relics, an ancient sword. So Ria lost the lady whom she served so much. However, even leaving the Katya's house and no longer being a knight, she is not able to betray her loyalty to the Kati family. She thought about possible actions, and finally made a decision. She firmly decided to extend the help of helping the disadvantaged orphans who were born in the edge of the duck of the time and support them financially. That is why the girl chose the path of adventurers and went to get money in the maze dungeons. The sword, presented by Monica, became for her a charm and symbol of the last hope for the kind of Katya. That is why she chose the path of the adventure. Dieto noted that the girl changed a lot. From a warlike knight, she turned into a real adventure finder. Araya replied that she only had the art of the sword, so she decided to rely on physical skill than a strategy. Turo supported her opinion, noting that Araya has a beautifully trained body, which should be used instead of excessive reflections. Kido noted that there are many scum and criminals among adventurers, so it is not surprising that rumors of the former Knight Beauty were spreading. A brave and attractive girl who joined the Avanturist Guild. Ryan noted that the Diato is also very popular, however. They are usually advised to go to the dungeon by a small group. At the same time, she heard about a witch that dredged to explore all the secret corners alone. Dato assured that with her skills and experience, she is quite capable of exploring everything on her own. Instead, the tour reminded that when he found it, she was almost at death. The tour noted that he understood why Ria chose the Traveler's Way, but emphasized that that sword was of particular importance to him. However, when she lost consciousness, she was gone. Arya agreed with this and reported that she would tell everything now, from the very beginning and to their meeting. Once upon a time, even before getting acquainted with the tour, a group of travelers thanked her for her help. The girl just waved, they say. It is not necessary to thank. Now everything is fine with them. Raya says goodbye to the boys and notices Dato sitting at the table in the Adventure Guild. She approaches him and stifles his palms on the table. She welcomes Daito and asks whether she wants and join her company. Daita is just sighing and notes that a bizarre evening was reappeared. Ray asked Date not to say that and suggested going to the raid together. It will be safer and more effective than acting at your own discretion. Du sighed. Again, Ria and her endless conversations about leadership in the guild. She was already tired of listening. Ria denied and explained that this time it was quite different. Guild rules are the basis that supports the authority and high reputation of the Adventure Guild. For the safety of members, the guild advises to form a group of several people before going to the dungeon. Ray realized that she could not do without money. If she did not start earning, the children in the shelter were doomed to stay in poverty. However, Ray has just finished, and from one floor the dungeons will not succeed. Already at the second level of newcomers covers despair. Enthusiasm is rapidly fading. She wants to collect a team with someone powerful to make more money. She needs a partner who has already had time to visit at least the 4th or even 5th floor. Ray suggested that instead of just sit and drink, it is better to enter her detachment. Dino raises his voice and states that she has no intention of entering any detachment. At that moment, 2 young men sit on the table. The dark-haired of them sighs and notes that both will not reach the 3rd floor. A fair-haired young man notes that they should make every effort to reach the 4th floor. His dark-haired friend adds that if they succeed, the reward will be a completely different grade. Not at all as before. Ray believed that the perfect team should consist of at least 3 fighters. Someone is harming, someone protects, and the other supports comrades. These two give the impressions of master warriors, but only 2 of them. This mystery does not give it rest, so Ray addresses Daieto with a question. She also points out that she has not met them before, although they always stay together. Dito agrees and adds that the Mark and Bar are fled from a neighboring country. As a deserter, she would never unite with those who are considered criminals in her home country. You decide to think again and try to talk to them. Dito notes that the girl is not to blame anyone. Ray approaches the boys and is wondering if she can join their team. A dark-haired young man brings his eyebrows in surprise and asks whether she is the famous knight she is talking about. Bernie asked Kleena sharply to shut up. Raya only shrugged, saying, "Nothing wrong. She's not the first time to hear like that." Barney turned to the girl. Now that she learned their names, what did she still need? Rhea confessed. She was interested in why they decided to become adventurers. Klein, meanwhile, quietly asked Barney to speak unspecified. Barney asked Klein to silence, and asked Ray to ask why she was this information. The girl in response confessed that she hopes to see them in her detachment. Heard the stunned guys. Klein asked the girl whether she was aware of her own words. After all, if they once return to their homeland, they will be met not as heroes, but as criminals. Everyone around the slap was frozen at a surprise. The client again settled, and Size said that because of this, in no way he could become part of a girl's company. Ray turned to Klein, asking whether the guy was regretted about his escape. Klein replied that they really left the battlefield. Ray noted that in her understanding, this does not deserve the mortal sentence. Barney asked, who was worried at all? What is wrong with a small party? There was no reason to refuse. Player agreed. It sounded quite logical. Barney added that, among other things, they were invited by a charming woman. For refusing such a proposal, the guy should even be punished. Ray replied that in this case it was a true honor for her. The boys also expressed their gratitude. Dito watched them with suspicion of eyes. Subsequently, everyone went to the dungeon in the sublime mood. Klein, an experienced fencer, was distinguished by powerful and accurate sword strikes. Barney, mag. He assures everyone that his element is support, but in fact he is quite resort to a spell of destructive power. Ray headed the detachment, skillfully reflecting enemy blows. Klein was striking the opponents, and Barney ended the battle with his magic. Together they created a surprisingly harmonious and efficient team. A little time passed, and they were already resting in a cozy tavern. Claims did not hold back the admiration. Today's raid was incredibly successful. He still could not believe that they managed to find such a rare artifact. Barney explained this by the fact that there were 3 of them. Arya seemed to fascinate the fortune, but only shrugged and asked the boys not to invent nonsense. Barney noted that they always feel completely safe when Arya is behind, as if they were standing behind an indestructible stone wall. But when she is ahead, he himself has to take all the blows, although he is not a master in defense. Of course, in any case, he considers himself a great participant in the team. Rhea agreed with this, adding that the boys also like it and seemed good. Ray wondered if she had been a stranger. Klein, noticeably confused, assured that everything was fine. But changing the topic, he added, most importantly, he just thought of something and suggested to climb the 5th floor. Rhea warned that it was too risky for them, and insisted on the 3rd or 4th floors. It would be safer. Klein also expressed the confidence that they would cope, and recalled that on the 5th floor, they pay more. The Rhea conceived the prospect of additional earnings. She smiled and nodded as a sign of consent. The girl also suggested that in this case maybe you should find someone else in their team. The Kling was worried about Raya, whether she really believes that someone would want to join. Barney gently asked the Kling not to say this, but immediately she apologized. Ray asks why they don't even try. Klein is wondering if she really thinks. Raya notes that he will only agree. As soon as the threat will appear, they are running away immediately. Bernie agreed and added that if the situation intensifies, he will certainly deal with them, and, if he can, pull home. A little time has passed in the dungeon, and in the end, Ham's sawers broke. Kleem exploded fiercely, calling it an unnecessary that nothing was worth it. It is unclear why at the very beginning of the 5th floor, the dungeon dreams of so many goblins. Klein noted that their territory should be much further. Barney interrupted, They say, "You will not help the chatter here," but now asks him to act. Suddenly, Goblin rushes to the brand, but Ray is sparingly between them, lifting the shield and shaking the boy. Listening to Barney's words, Ray supports him and calls for the Mark to calm down. At this point, Barney causes the icy wind. Cold fragments of ice gnaws the Goblin to the ground. Ray waves his sword, throws it up to rise, and asks Barney to pick up the weapon. The Mark began the battle, and after a while announced that it was the last Goblin. Barney noted that everything happened because the Mark did not pay enough attention to his sword. The brand admitted that Barney was right. But who would think that there would be so well-armed goblins? Ria stressed that, as she provided, they appeared here too early, and the moment came to retreat. Klein asked her to leave his sword until they get out of here. The girl did not deny, because Klein lost her weapon. She noted that everyone has high hopes on the young man. Klein thanked him, adding that the sword is already extremely sharp, so one could not mention it. Ray agreed, noting that such sharpness was due to the strong mithril from which the weapon was forged. Plain was surprised to ask whether these weapons were forged from pure mithril. Ray confirmed, explaining that the sword gave her Monica. It was she who possessed when she served as a knight. For Ray, this sword is not just a weapon, but a real treasure trove of memories. Klein was surprised to say that he would now be cautious. But suddenly the unfinished goblin moved behind them. He waved the tube and threw something in the direction of the boys. Ray saw it, sharply pushed out the holy sideways. The dart hit the leg. The Mark is striking by Goblin, after which she looks at her with anxiety and asks if everything is fine. Ray apologizes to them and explains. It was a paralytic dart. The client appealed to Barney to apply the spray charm. Barney tried, but confessed that the spell did not work. His magic level was insufficient for this task. Klein asked Barney to continue the healing, and then asked if she heard her voice. Barney replied that he should store Manu in order to reach the surface. The Mark noted that it may be true, but they cannot just leave Rhea in that condition. But Barney cut off that in this case they would leave Rhea here. It was a great deal of branding. Barney stated that if they were dragging it so deep, then everyone would have died. At such levels, they would not resist them. Klein asked what they had to do. Ray ordered to stop and then agreed with Barney. He was right. When a friend can no longer move, you should take everything you need and immediately move on, without waiting for the monster to gather again. The guild manual has considered similar cases. After all, the most valuable is a provision and weapons. Barney picks up a bag and Ray. Barney said goodbye to Ray, thanking her sincerely. Then he turned to the Mark, encouraging and saying goodbye. The Mark himself wanted to say a few words to farewell, but instead assured Ray that they would certainly meet. Ray wished them to be careful. It took some time and Ray tried to get up. She stated that she could not just sit, folding her hands and wait for the monster to find her. To hide in order to be safe, it would not be possible. There was no such place. Ray noted that in this cozy niche, if she can get to her, she would be able to hide. Stepping the corridor, she thought about Barney. He could at least protect her until they find a place where she will be able to come to her senses. And then Klein slept. She suggested that he may have left her sword. Did he not hear how much did these weapons weigh for her? Even if she tries to hide, it is unlikely that anyone will come to her help. The girl, apologizing Monica, confesses that he is injured not only by the body but also by his soul. The tour was already perfectly understood. She was thrown deep in the dungeon, without food, without weapons, alone. The paralyzing poison slowly depleted the body without letting it move. In the darkness, monsters were scattered around, and this fear squeezed the heart even harder. It was horrified before the inevitable death, and, unable to withstand tension, sat down and broke. It was at this moment that the Tour appeared and saved it. Tour showed extreme kindness to her. However, he had not yet had time to realize how she had already been staggered in front of the dungeon so much that she could not hold her sword in her hands. Daito remembered another rumor that went to the guild. Allegedly, the Mark received the raised sword in accordance with the rules of the guild itself, but every time she tried to find out more, she received only excerpts and hints. Raya confessed that it was partially her fault. Fear was so slammed that she could not move, and even for a moment she did not think about their safety. On the contrary, at heart, she wanted a completely different. Daito assured that there was nothing unusual about it. It was this thought that worried the girl. In his opinion, she was just in a state of shock. Kido promised that she would certainly take revenge on the ghost for the hurt caused by the ray, and would return the girl's sword. Rhea noted that Daito could not do so. The principles of Adventure Guild guilds are strictly followed in the Kingdom of Francisco. If he is caught, he is immediately recognized as a criminal. Daito replied that she couldn't forgive them. She turns to the tournament. What is your thought? The girl again asks the boy to give his answer. The kid again turned his gaze to the Tour, whose hands trembled from tension. The Tour confessed that he was not able to forgive the abusers. He would certainly take revenge on them. The girls realized the Tour finally lost its self-control. RIA returned to Tour and noted that despite his words, there were its own principles and laws in the guild. Turo replied that the girl would not forgive them, and then looked at Rhea in question. What decision she would make? Dito asked the boy. He believed that she did not know it. Turo replied that he was going to make them feel the same horror that Rhea survived. Then Dito asked him to allow her to help. Suddenly, the Seamuk appeared and asked the master if he would help her. The Ro was scared to see the white slippery, and the Tor strictly advised the girl to take the case. Those who force the Ri to shed tears will have to turn her sword. At this point, the Turo takes the word to discuss a further plan of action. A little time has passed, and Dito, Brownie, and Klein have already come together in a fierce fight on the floor. In the full battle the kid used fiery witchcraft, peculiar to Manga Inferno. Brownie was surprised and noted that from this, an experienced adventure seeker, nothing else was worth waiting. Klein added that such a person can really rely. Klein returned to the girl and admired that she was so charming that they should definitely leave her in their team forever. Dio laughed and replied that she was still thinking about it. At the same time, her thoughts have the question, how can boys say so by leaving a friend? Do both such people? The impression they make does not coincide with the words of Rhea. Their claims sound so everyday that it even causes inconvenience. But Barney sometimes looks as if he appreciates people, evaluating their true qualities. Daita believed that Rhea had an extremely good heart, so anyone seemed good in her look. Claim turned to the girl, asked her artifact, and asked if he was so useful. Are you sure that the boy really meant the moonstone in the necklace? She asked. She nodded and added, even without a lantern or a torch, everything around will shine. This suspension was probably its most valuable relic. Barney wondered how much she cost this artifact and whether he was of great value. The child shrugged, they say. The thing was quite inexpensive. According to her, he looked much more expensive on the sword. The Mark was surprised by such an answer and asked if the girl really thought. He explained that they were not just a sword before them, but a blade that was expelled from mithril, and not even ordinary, but the purest mithril. Dito was convinced that this sword did not really belong to Klein. However, she could not act immediately. She would have to wait, though it was upset. Otherwise, all thoroughly thoughtful Turo's plans would be at risk. The Tour said that he wanted to carry the brand and bar to the iron door facing this room. The child replied that it would be easy to fulfill his request if he wishes it. She herself suggested that they would probably want to get to the 5th level. For a while, Bernie asked Klein to stop. Klein asked the guy what happened. Daida considered Klein to be inappropriate, although she did not trust Bernie. Barney noted that if we weigh on everything, he sincerely did not expect someone as capable as Daida would agree to go with them. Daida agreed that this is a logical conclusion. In order to bring the tour to life, Daito came to the fore again. First of all, she attached an announcement on a guild board. Barney with Klein approached the Daito. Barney reported that on the bulletin board they noticed a message. A girl was looking for a temporary team to make money. Barney noted that such a situation for Daito was more an exception, because she was rumored that she was always acting alone. Du replied that she had her own expenses. By the way, she wondered if the boys had already discussed money. Barney said that at the 5th level, the dungeons have a conversation about the so-called funeral rite. Among the adventure seekers, this saying is slang. Under it are the distribution of trophies that have remained from the dungeons killed in the dungeon. In fact, it is a real hunt for the bodies of the dead. However, the equipment of dead adventure seekers is usually in an extremely poor condition and is almost no value. Yaido noted that this ritual service does not bring almost any claim. Even if you have an unknown adventurers and arrange a funeral, former teammates have never given such respect. Barney noted that now a great opportunity to organize a farewell ceremony. There is an armor and a shield that once belonged to the knight. A good prey that can be profitable and divided into 3. Daita herself understood that there would always be those who are attracted to such forbidden things. The guys do not receive equipment for the first time. the cost of which is compared to the sword of pure Midigi. However, in fact, they are ordinary adventurers who are too fond of foreign funeral ceremonies. While Daito was fighting, this couple was just looking for a third party to climb the 5th floor together. However, from the very beginning they are haunted by stupid glory, and strange suspicion only adds mysteriousness to these two, although for some reason they suddenly felt confidence. Daida is convinced that besides her, they still can't find anyone. She wondered where the body of the knight was. Klein replied that it was Ray. If she found out that Dito was now on the team, she would probably be jealous. The kid laughed, responding to Klein that he was overly precision. Barney noted that it was here that RIA was killed, so he suggested that the terrain carefully inspect. They had no idea where the armor could be. Daida smiles, mentally leaving the rest of the tour. She shouted the boys and wondered if Rias was lying there. They turned, and they saw them truly stunned. Kid pointed to the blonde lying on the ground and wondered if he was not Ria. The boys looked stunned, not understanding how it could happen. The kid guessed that all this was done to confuse them. After a week without food or water, the human body should look much more decomposed. Daida smiled and wondered if the girl was alive. The girl turned to the men, asking only not to tell her that they had fun with the river and then betrayed her. Barney surprised exactly that she could be alive. The kid only joked. Ria is not a living person but only a body without life. It pushes them and orders them to be started. The boys approached Ria. Barney could not understand whether she really died. The girl lay motionless, without giving any signs of life. Hams noted that her skin was not at all faded. The child confessed that she was not sure whether the girl really died. They would have received a lot of money if they had a gear and shield. Dito suggested that she just remove the armor, approach the girl, and ask her for forgiveness. Suddenly, Raya grabs him by the hand and calls the Mark and Barney. Men are surprised. Barney does not believe her eyes and asks whether Ria is really alive. She nods and says that she miraculously managed to survive, and sincerely thanked the boys for their help. Klein wondered, "Isn't it worth saving your friends?" RIA smiled in response and said she was to her. And Daedo twisted and addressed Klein. "What do you get a rose?" "We came to sell her shield and armor, and then divide the proceeds." Barney promised to prepare a special reward for Daito. In response, she noted that she would remain silent, but hopes at least 1,000. Ray wondered at the young man that he meant. She noted that she did not believe that they appeared here to bury her. Barney denied that it was not true, and stated that Daida was just inventing some strange things. Raya agreed, adding what she thought, because they were friends. The girl turned to Klein and reported that the sword he lifted from the ground belonged to her. She asked if the guy could turn her weapon. Barney explained that according to the rules of the guild, the sword belongs to Klein, and if the girl remains alive, he is not obliged to return it. Rhea twisted with horror and hurriedly apologized to her men. Suddenly, two pressed the button and the door went down. Barney and Klein were frightened. Fear was pierced to the bones. Barney warned that it was dangerous to stay here and urged everyone to flee immediately. But suddenly, Rhea grabbed them by her feet. They turned to the girl in surprise, asking what she thought, and demanded to let them go. Suddenly, Ray exploded with laughter and returned to the boys, opening her face. It was distorted. She strictly ordered them to return her sword of memories. The boys were begging for letting it out. Raya replied that he may have mercy on them if they returned her sword. Klein immediately agreed and promised to give away weapons. Suddenly, they start screaming, and then they are unconscious. The tour is closer and reports that they have lost consciousness. Turning to the girls, he smiles, greeting them with success, and sincerely thanks for the well-done business. Dito noted that she was terribly angry with men. In response, the Sea Scow noted that even mucus has amazing endurance. Thoru noted that the clinic and bar trousers were wet. He decides to take a picture of them, then asks Dee to wait a little. It has passed for a while, and he appeals to the girl to write a letter. She willingly agrees and quickly records the message. The guy leaves the sword and says it's time to go back to the room. For a while, he looks at the camera monitor. Beto notes that she seems as if she were suspected of Barney. They came across a warning note. If they decide to follow that dungeon again, the suffering will not pass them until the last breath. Diito was annoyed, looking at Turo's message and their common photo. After all, they could not stand and fled. The tour is hopeful that they will never have to meet again. After that, he rises and goes to the room where Ria sat. Ria wondered if everything was ready. He nodded, passed the sword to the girl and said that he was her weapon from now on. The girl cautiously took the sword with a trembling hand, pressed him firmly, and broke. She whispered through tears that she was the weapon that Monica presented to her. The girl asked the Tour what he would do if she was shaking and could not move. The Tour replied that even if he had to carry her in his arms, he would try to get out with her, even though they would be attacked by a monster and he would have died with her. The girl smiled and confidently went closer. The guy was noticeably lost, but she took a step to him. Rye, with a sly smile, said that she was already waiting for his reaction. The Tour confessed to Rhea that it should say something important to her. He discovered the truth. He is not a great sage. With a reproach in his voice, asked for deception. Rhea confessed that she had long thought. She was well aware of what was happening, but enjoyed her life near the Tour, and allowed herself to take his care and tenderness. It was she who had to apologize because of this inconvenience. But the Tour confessed that he was not worried about it. On the contrary, he sought to be closer to the girl. Rhea wondered at the guy who he is, regardless of the circumstances. The Tour confessed that it would not be easy to explain, but Rhea just smiled and assured that she understood everything, and did not worry at all who really was the Tour. Suddenly, Rhea drops on his knees and bows in front of the guy. She solemnly promises that until her last breath will remain a knight of two righteous paths. The Tour asked her to give a little more time, because everything happened to him too unexpectedly, and he was unable to agree immediately. Rhea replied to it. If so, she wants the Tour to marry her. Whatever she is, a knight or wife, her heart wants to be near this guy. All her efforts are in vain, so she appeals to him to become her master or husband. But no doubt, the second option seems more desirable. The Tour jokingly says that maybe even a knight would like to rely on a girl in this world. Rhea insulted cheeks. She assured that her dedication and sword were fully owned. Other adventure seekers were also nearby, so the Tour did not interfere with the choice of Dato and Chisuk. At the same time, she assures the young man, if he really perceives her as his bride, then she will look forward in joy for that day. After a little time, Ryo finds himself in the dungeon. He inhales deeply, and then skillfully uses a combination of blows. Rhea notes that her ability to own a sword did not weaken. After that, she exhales with relief. The Tour appears and reports that the door is already open. He praises the girl, noting that she did a great task. Rey rotates to the Tour. Returning a metallic sword, she manages him every day in the dungeon, trying to feel his weight and strength in his own hand again. She seems to overcome her fears and return to the usual cheerfulness. The Tour reports that dinner is ready and invites everyone to the table. The melody sings and wonders what will be for lunch today. The Tour with a smile replies that today they will taste the sugars. The Tour explained that he prepared it specifically because they did not have time to eat. The gentleman noted the appetizing aroma of the dish, and Rhea added that it also looks delicious. The Tour invites girls to start a meal. Thanks to the young man for delicious food, they took up the dish. It was noted that the taste exceeded their expectations, and the aroma was simply unsurpassed. The meat turned out to be extremely tender and had a nice sweet note. The Tour explained that it is excellent beef. Its taste will open even brighter if you taste with rice. He puts a piece, and smiling, asks the Schizok to open his mouth and try. Rey noted that it would take at least 2 days to get out of the dungeons and lift the surface, and it is worth considering what kind of food they would take with them. Dito assured that she would handle the monsters together with Ria, and the Tour should take care of food. He did not deny the Tour and agreed. Dito noted that the food should not be too heavy. The Tour hastened to reassure her. You should not worry. They will look forward to the treat he will prepare. For a while, they appeared in the corridors of the dungeon. The Tour securely hid the door with the key. Then he said it was time to climb the surface. Rey wondered in the Tour that the boy was doing near the wall. The guy explained that the front door was closing. Daita wondered if it was true. It seemed to her that he was just beating near the stone wall. Since the residents of this world are not able to see the door to the apartment, there may be no need to lock them. If something had penetrated here, something special would have happened. In addition, extra caution will never hurt. Diato takes away the key and hides it in a rather unexpected place. The Tour stops her and is wondering if it seems strange to her. Datoto reassures the boy and assures that he is not worried. The key in complete safe, she will not lose anything. He picks up the keys in date and transmits them. The girl assures a young man that he can count on him. Dato is stunned by such a surprise. Suddenly, Rhea declares the Tour that he sees the door. Tour and Dato do not hide their surprise. Dato does not hold and asks how it is possible, because she sees nothing at all. Sezukuk assured that she did not notice anything too, and then wondered with surprise if Ria really saw some door there. Ria confirmed, adding that it was the passage that leads to the tour room. The tour surprised that Ria suddenly noticed the door. He asks Dato to take the key. Dato takes him to his hands and says with a smile that he also sees the door now. All this is due to the key. The tour asked Ria to check if she could open the door with a key. Ria replied that she would try. Ria goes to the door and, hesitating slightly, asks, "That is, I just insert it into the hole and turn it?" So confirms what is necessary. Without spending time, Ria strongly opens the door. The tour is convinced that it is right. If the inhabitants of their world, including Rii, are able to see the door and the key to them, so they can open this door, it is likely that something is hidden behind them. He goes to the house and invites girls to join him. They go into the room and notice in the window of Japan. Tourist notes that everyone is now visible. They are outside this room. Ria confirms that it is the world of tourists. In turn, they also recalls that she has seen this street earlier, and says confidently, "This is really the world of tourists." Tour asked Daito to hand over the sewing key, and she noted that she sees him well. That is exactly the appearance of everything from the outside. The tour was surprised to see what effect this key has. He returned to Ria and urged her to promise that she would never lose that thing. Then he notes that the emotions will subsided now, and they will finally be able to move to the surface. The child remains behind. The Detoth called the tour and reported that she needed one key. It surprised the tour, and she exclaimed that they were going to go to their world. In addition, he entrusted it only in storage, so isn't it the same? He asks the girl to let Ray leave this thing. Ria confessed that she also wanted to get the key. The tour, without hesitation, allowed her to leave him. Ria, not believing in her ears, asked if it was true, and with joy her face shone. It was in surprise to raise his eyebrows in surprise. He wondered why the key only reached. She noted that it was ordinary creep. Terai immediately stated that he wanted the same key. He added that the keys wizard will easily make duplicate for all. Dato is interested in the state of the mechanic and reports that they are now going to him. Shizuke also calls the tour, calling immediately. The tour understands that there is no time for delay, and you need to hurry. After some time, the tour came to pick up 2 copies of the keys. The master reported that both duplicates would be ready at 9:30. He thanked the tour. Going outside, the tour sounds Dito and Ri, but suddenly notices that a crowd of interesting residents has already gathered around them. He hastily extends to his friends simple clothes so that they do not attract extra attention. He realizes that Ria and Dito are truly attractive, therefore there is nothing to wonder. Their appearance is not at all similar to traditionally Japanese. It seems to him that hardly anyone will dare to treat them impolite. Everyone is only watching them from the outside without deciding to approach closer. No one realizes that a knight and a sorceress from another world before them. He takes the girls by hands and announces that time to go. While preparing the keys, they have a little free time, so you need to take something. Ray noted that her desire could surprise the boy, but she seeks to learn more about the world in which he lives. Dieto said that in the evenings she often goes for walks, and now seeks to discover something new. She supported her, adding that she was also trying to explore this unknown world. Turkan suggested a stroll, because tomorrow they go on the road. The girls gladly supported this idea. The girls look around and see skyscrapers that scoff the sky. They rush faster than any horse, and a crowd of people rages around. Dieto noted that it is not just about it. Here you can find a lot of delicious dishes, and it will gladly share your loved ones with the river. Turoro, in turn, confessed. Besides pancakes, nothing can be advised. He could not even imagine what they could like. Raya confesses that she has no money at all. Guido assures that you should not worry. Pei will take the tour. The tour is surprising. The tour finally agrees and assures the girls that everything takes on. For a while, it treats them with delicious pancakes. Ray ties and happily tastes goodness. Dato notes that there are traces of cream on the face of the RI, after which they buy a portion of fish in the form of fish. Girls suddenly notice that many people are dressed in a variety of clothes. Ray smiles in response and agrees, noting how all they look. The girls return to the tour, enthusiastically declaring that they want to try something. Subsequently, the boys approach women's clothing store. The girls dress up and then go out to the boy and are interested in how their new looks. The tour noted that both girls look extremely attractive. Raya enthusiastically stated that she wanted to try on the next image. Dito supported this idea and added that she tried on another set of clothes. Girls try new images. Toto chooses bold, even cheeky outfits, while the Reese is preference for elegance and gentle elegance. The tour understands that it is a real pleasure for the eyes, no matter what they are dressed in. Meanwhile, Ria extends the girl's kit and is interested in her impressions. Dito calls. They say, it does not look at it. Raya denies, assuring that this is not the case, and confidently states that the kit will surely see her. Date also supports this opinion, so he decides to try on the outfit, which she will have to undress. Alodo puts fine lingerie and asks Tours what it looks like. The tour begins to blush. Alodo is worried. Does it really look strange? But the tour smiles and assures that everything is wonderful. This image is very good. Raya enthusiastically noted that it looks extremely cute. Subsequently, she suggested that children try a few more charming kits. Some time has passed and the girls bought themselves brand new updates. The tour noted that I was glad if they managed to have fun. At least in another world, he managed to find several gold coins. Then they stroll through the city. The girls are passionate about note that Japan is incredibly modern and so calm in appearance. Rei is interested in the guy whether war is happening here. The tour quietly points out that for 70 years in their country peace has reigned. Dito notes that although this world seems extremely developed, she still has not noticed here either demodists or elves. She is wondering, is this really such a country? The tour is assured that there are neither semi-human nor elves in their world. The girls were surprised by the guy if he was not jokes. Dito wondered if people really destroyed other races. In response, the tour noted that he had never heard them fought against half-lums or half-people. Dito explained that this is what she worries. He replied that there were really legends about giants, demons, and other evil, but he did not believe in such fictions. The Diet confessed that she was trusting the boy. Dito apologized to the guy. The tour asked for what the girl apologizes. Dita explained that she was repeated because of her personal wrath about the key. In the end, Ria also apologized, because it was a house of tour. The tour assured that everything is fine. He himself sought to make the girls contact him at any time. In addition, he wanted to open them even more faces of Japan. The girls look thoughtfully at the guy. Tour suddenly suggests, and what? How to take the keys and go to another world. Subsequently, everyone gets their own key. The moment has come to open the door. It's time to leave the dungeon and climb the surface into a new, unknown world. The heroes stepped on the 5th floor of Yomi Laparot, where giant monsters were already on them. The tours became terrifying of their gloomy appearance. Suddenly he appeared in front of Raya and Kido. The girls Strezlov rushed into battle. The tour exhaled with relief and confessed that it was scared well. Dito, smiling, advised the boy to relax, to which the tour noted. The tension is quite clear, because in Japan he did not have to see any monsters. Dito expressed confidence. With this level of boys, several giant rats like those insects is not an obstacle. The tour added, if the young lady says probably, she is right. It reached the 10th level, but still cannot understand whether its characteristics have become better. Suddenly, the guy recalls that he has mastered the ability to evaluate the characters, and thinks, will he be able to see the girl's performance using this skill? Dello dares to try his hand. He uses the character assessment skill and notices the features of Dello and Arya. The guy is surprised that the girls have truly impressive performance. The tour replies that he cannot see all the features of girls. Dito notes that the reason is in his low level of skill. As soon as he increases his skill, he will open much more. Turo was surprised that the level of grandfather really increased. At first, its restriction was only the 47th level. But after their close meeting, this limit rose. She devoted her free time to the persistent grind without releasing the clicker. He believes that the girl has so easy to raise her level. As for the Ria, it is currently inferior to diatomy by level, but has the potential to grow much higher. The tour is interested in Ria, whether the limit of level has recently increased. Ria replies that this really happened, but she does not understand the reason. The girl, in turn, asks the tour, or knows something about it. The tour is trying to explain something, but suddenly Dito appears and is wondering if there was something between the boy and the river. She adds that from that moment, the guy has never treated her the same. It passed for a while, and the company moved on the dungeons. Ria confidently set the pace in front. The magician's magician kept in the middle of the group, and the tour, together with the Shizuku, was carefully guarded from the rear. Finally, they got the 4th floor and wondered if it was really the shortest way. Dito assured that yes and stressed that this route was the fastest. But the tour noted that 4 hours of fighting monsters on the road can hardly be called speed. Ria notes that the boys' room to get quite simple and fast. She only wandered here before the poison had faint her. Dito adds that she often climbed and descended on the surface, so she was used to such transitions. I proposed to make a small break, just over the lunchtime. Dito supports his opinion and notes that there is a fountain nearby where you can stay quietly. The boy is wondering how much more to go, and the child explains that the destination is only an hour of the way. Overcoming all kinds of obstacles, they gradually moved forward, finally came to some spacious hall. The tour noted that it is much easier to move here. The routes no longer interfere, and there is plenty of space. Diato reports that they finally reach the fountain, and gestures indicate the boy on him. He delays his gaze and understands that they are really a fountain. Suddenly, his gaze stops at a few figures in the corner of the room, and he is surprised to realize that they are aliens from another world. The tour notes that they give the impression of extremely powerful, and the Suzuka agrees with him. The tour is expressed that the Cisco is similar to white mucus, so perhaps it is worth hiding it from prying eyes. Dito assures that it is not necessary to worry until it is worth it. The Guild of Adventure exists precisely to prevent the groups from being distracted by the fights. It is better not to tease this force. Dito noted that these guys are not so strong. The tour was suspicious of whether it was true. Dito replied that if the guy was really interested in, he could make sure himself, and at the same time, advised not to pay attention to the features of red-haired. The tour wondered why that. Dito explained that the man is impressed by the thief and probably has the skills of identification. He could feel that the guy analyzes his characteristics, and this could lead to trouble. So the tour decided to pay attention to a man with a scar. The tour notes that it has a 12th level. Only 2 levels are higher than him. Diato with a smile admits that this is a rather mediocre result. He reached the 10th level, so nothing is different. Dito also adds that he became an adventure seeker about 3 years ago. Being at least one monster, if your level is lower than the 10th, is a true madness and almost true death. But to kill a giant polystime at such a low level at all seems fantastic. However, the young man managed to do it just in his room. One easy pressing of the button. Tour noted that they themselves are well aware of their weakness. Dito replied that there is only one look for this. Tour admitted, so it should be. An experienced adventure seeker immediately sees such things. The tour decides to have a snack. Rhea is wondering if he really prepared all this on his own. The tour with a smile replies that it is the least as it can help, because it is not capable of battle. He took with him a bunch of flavors. Dito admires enthusiastically that he can no longer wait to try everything. The tour declares that they will first reinforce. Thanks to the fountain, they do not have to look for water, so it gets a package of instant noodles. The young man decides to first heat the water in a pan, then adds noodles, broth, and dried vegetables. Now it is necessary to wait a little, and the dish is ready. The kid was surprised that the lunch was prepared so quickly. Raya noted that the incense dishes were simply incredible, and wondered what they were cooked. Tudor noted that this is the best miso. Raya explained that miso is something like soup, and added that she was very pleased with the soup of miso, which is prepared by the tutor. The tour noted that it tastes like a miso, though it is actually a rab. She announces the time to dine. The girls thank the boy for the dish. He gently blows on hot noodles, and then begins to eat. Girls carefully watch what is happening, and then admire the dish on their own. Suddenly, everyone at the same time exclaims that it is delicious. Ray was enthusiastically noted that the dish turned out to be delicious, even despite the time of cooking. Dadido fully agreed with her. Suddenly Dito feels the careful look of another adventure seeker. Meanwhile, the tour thinks that they are too loud, and the aroma from the dish is too bright and expressive. The tour is interested in what adventurers usually eat in the dungeons. Dito replies that the best is dried fruits and meat or salted fish. In the worst case, you have to soak stale bread in the water. Tour thinks that such life seems quite cruel. Suddenly, another cauldron and the next bag of the shoulders get from the purse. Raya is in surprise to ask if he is really going to eat again. The tour is thought that it is worth sharing a provision with the rest of the travelers. Dito warns the boy, advising not to rush to such a proposal. Ria, on the contrary, supports the plan and expresses a desire to join help. She thanked her to the tour for her support. It pours food into glasses. Dito notes that the girl actually thinks that it is not necessary to do so. The tour also invites her to stay here and look after the Shizuke. Going to travelers, he is friendly. A scar with a scar does not hide surprise. The tour understands that these strangers are in no hurry to trust them. So, in order to discharge the atmosphere, the tour with a smile confesses that he cooked too much soup and offers to treat. The adventurers are confused. A scar with a scar is interested in how much food costs. Tours only smiles and replies that nothing is needed, after which it extends to everyone in the mug of aromatic soup. Adventurers are overwhelming. The tour is lost in guessing what is happening, and suddenly the man asks, "Is it not poisoned?" Then the man addresses the guy with the question, why he speaks the language of the monster, brings with him amazing things, and also treat them with dishes that they have never seen before. He also reminds the boy that he seems to forget Japanese. Turs asks, "Are they not comrades on adventures? Will they attack their own?" He insists that he did not spill poison into food. Instead, the man replies coldly, "The guild still does not know what happened in the dungeon, because the dead do not tell stories." Then, talking about the dead, they look at Arya and are interested. Not she. The same knight army that always appears in time? The verse girl nods, recognizing it. The man tells that Ray had once helped him, but he heard Arya died. The tour understands that on the surface it is believed that the Arya is dead. Arya herself calmly assures she is alive. The tour is mentioned by a guy with strange artifacts who speaks a monster. A girl who returned from the kingdom of the dead. No one has seen foods like. He doubts that all this can give the result. The tour shrugged and said, "If you do not trust you, then just throw away the food as you want." Without waiting for the answer, he turned and went away. The man uncertainly says that he will eat it. The tour is turned and looks at it in surprise. The man confesses that the aroma and appetizing sounds do not give him rest. He cannot resist. Even if it costs his life, he is indifferent. He tastes the dish and exclaims it is incredibly tasty. Turo is surprised to ask if it is really so delicious. The man smiles widely and says, "It is a real masterpiece." Adventurers look at the man with alert, and then hesitantly touch the dish. Their face is surprising. The food is surprisingly delicious. Suddenly, the red-haired guy exclaimed that they would not eat everything right away. It was greatly surprised by the tour. He could not understand why he said so, because he did not add any poison. The young man advised that if you dip the bread into this fragrant soup, the dish would become much delicious. The adventurers were happy about this idea and immediately tasted treats. After that, the tour says goodbye to them, and everyone goes on the road. Subsequently, Dito confesses that she had no idea that they really dare to try this dish. However, it seems that the tour was truly glad, and this is probably the most important thing. The tour confessed that he did not understand who praises whom now. He is Tito, or vice versa. Raya asked the guy asking, "What is his hands?" The tour explained that these flowers were presented to him by those guys, as a sign of gratitude. Tito asked a flower, and when he found out that it was really a flower of an ancient tree, he did not hide as a surprise. Turo was surprised, except for it's so unique, because those seizures of the adventures of such flowers had a lot. Dedo says that this flower is part of the middle potion. Despite the fact that it is constantly in high demand, it is rumored that only a few among the adventurers are known where it can be found. Some have knowledge of truly profitable things, but trying to hide them from others. In other words, this message makes these guys clear that there is a special place on this floor where the flowers of the ancient tree bloom, and he should try to find them. It was probably the best gratitude for miso soup. Raya noted that everyone seems to be sincerely appreciated the dish. Suzuka was enthusiastically noted that it was wonderful, and the date joked that next time the guy should treat them with something delicious. The young man admires the charming flower, and promises that the next time he will inevitably treat them. After some time, the heroes find themselves on the 3rd floor of Yomi. The tour is genuinely surprised to see a real castle among the labyrinths. Dito maintains his surprise, and, with a smile, asks whether the guy is really so impressed. A few decades ago, when the dungeon was first discovered, a real excitement was raised around the castle. His halls were crammed with gold treasures, and crowds of adventurers rushed here into a real gold boom. A little time has passed, and several skeletons emerged from the darkness. The tour is stunned, and Rei was hesitant without hesitation. She skillfully dealt with the skeletons, cutting them one by one. Diato is in doubt whether the skeletons are really in front of them. The tour assures that these creatures should be quite strong. However, Dido does not believe. How are they strong if they have neither muscles nor weapons in their hands? And then she asked if these opponents were not perfect for his workouts. The tour wondered if he could handle them. Dido noted that if a guy focused solely on a click strategy, even by raising his level, he will not be able to develop either skill or combat senses. The tour fully agreed with her words. Raya suggested taking their cargo on herself, allowing the boy to use her shield. The tour notes that the shield is incredibly heavy. To pull such armor constantly, a great strength is needed. Ray is interested. Does the boy really not like a girl with muscles? The child asked them to stop filtering everything. The tour seemed that he had no other choice. It has passed for a while, and the young man dealt with several skeletons. He considered them powerless, but their number was really huge. Suddenly, the tour stumbles, but quickly catches up with the guy. The girl is wondering whether everything is fine with him. The tour nods back, however, as it should be expected. He is already tired of this bustle. Ray smiles and reports that they have almost reached the place where the camp can be arranged. She asks the girl to wait a little more, and patience. For a while, they finally get to the right location. Someone reports a group of tour that there is a free space below. Somewhere he expresses his gratitude. They approached prison cameras, where, according to the promise, they will finally be able to exhale with relief. Rhea assured that they should not be afraid of unexpected attacks of monsters. Diato supported her words, adding that the guild had hired experienced adventurers who were watching the territory closely. They come to the camera. The tour admits that tired. Ray smiles and suggests posting classes for another day so that the guy can relax this night. They eat oatmeal and then go to bed. The next morning the boys wake up and take up breakfast. They are preparing to move on, climbing the stairs. On the second floor, the heroes find themselves in the mysterious laboratory of Yomi. There is a confession that seeing the castle underground was a real surprise, like the whole forest around. It is surprisingly light, so he does not believe that they are actually underground. Dito said that light moss grows only in the oldest forests. He laughs and adds that he does not even need a flashlight with such moss. Laying the trail through a thick forest during a lunch break, the kid turns to the tour. He reports that very soon they will reach the first floor and warns that they should be particularly careful from Shizuke. The tour is surprised. Why? Dito says that the first level serves as a refuge for exiles who have no room on the surface. Many criminals live here, so clashes for the territory. The phenomenon is far from rare. As in most of the slims, a fierce struggle unfolds on the first floor. Numerous influential groups compete desperately for power and control over the territories. The Guild of Thieves earns a life pocket theft. The merchants are thriving, doing things in the black market, and recently, the Guild of Mercenaries has recently gained power. They perform a task where a rough physical power is needed. The tour noted that this place seems quite dangerous. Dito added that, in truth, except for the Guild of Mercenaries, there is almost nothing to worry about. The tour was surprised to notice that they would not be more concerned with the Guild of Thieves. Ray agreed. Yes, the guild poses a serious threat. Dito assures that the Guild of Thieves only hunts aristocrats and wealthy merchants, so they do not make any sense in touching them. The Kai House himself mastered the theft of theft. Ria sighs and says that it is a real annoyance, but probably because they constantly brought children who do not belong to the Guild of Thieves. The house is really surprising, so small theft here is almost inevitable. Raya reassured that as long as they were in the shelter, there was no danger. Dito denied. Even here, not everyone is accepted. The tour asked, "What about the trading guild?" Dito cannot express neither approval nor condemnation about them, but she would be grateful if they offered something useful to them. For example, food, weapons, or armor. However, at the same time, there are rumors that these people are engaged in prohibited affairs. Dito expressed the opinion that these people also have their needs, so she considers guild a kind of necessary evil. Raya added that in a guild tavern she goes, children often visit both the trading guild and various playgrounds. The guy asks about mercenaries. The girls immediately state, those are a real disaster. According to Dito, heard on the ground floor, these people are more like racketeers. Under the guise of guards, they impose young adventure seekers, blackmail them, and complicate their lives in every possible way. They say they select everything they get on the hikes to the last little things. She also learned that this group was keeping the most convenient way to the lower levels and attacks anyone who dared to go through this road. 2 rubies are reminiscent of yakus. Their manners and behavior are almost identical. Adventurers and similar ones usually avoid similar cases. Dito agrees. That's really, but if you stay away, you find yourself in the minority. If possible, it is better not to get into it. Then they will leave you alone. The tour confesses that he has some fears about their lifting to the ground floor. The novel is completely divided by his excitement. Dito notes that the guy looks very unusual, and the sewing is rare white mucus, so they can be easily exposed. The tour proposes to mask the sewing, turning it into part of the clothes. Dino is interested in this issue, and Ria explains. Since both fleece wearing quite unusual costumes, someone can use the skill of identifying the equipment. If they do it, it is likely that they will find a gentleman. The tour notes that the Sazukuk can turn into someone, which will allow you to merge with the local residents unnoticed. He asks whether he recalls the Sinsuk, in which outfits were dressed on the 4th floor. The girl nods, confirming her consent. The tour suggests that she try to be a gear for an adventure seeker. The Shitsuka agrees and looks like armor. The tour is interested in girls whether he can try on this armor, so he will be able to hide the Shitsuk inside. Shizuke jokes that these armor is very suitable. Ray notes that the guy gives the impression of an experienced adventure seeker. Dito fully agrees. And the tour adds that if his weapon was Kalo, it would look weird, so the best would come an iron sword. Dito agrees that this is a great idea. When they reach the 1st floor, they immediately buy the sword. Tyrus is in doubt whether all that is true. Without unnecessary hesitation, they move on the road. Soon the boys get to the laboratory of Yomi on the ground floor. The tour is confessed. Although I heard many different stories, but the atmosphere here is much calmer than he imagined. Ray replies that Gona is located on the lands of the Trading Guild. This is still the most prestigious area of the city. The tour is asking if it is true. Suddenly, Guy was called by name. Turning, he saw a whole company of charming elves who had fun inviting him to join their games. Shizuka notes that Duto and Ria do not bring his eyes off the master. The tour, a little confused, confesses. For the first time he sees other elves except Dito. But in response, it smiles. These elves, perhaps the most common, they can be found everywhere. But she is a high-birth elfish, belongs to a rare, special kind. The girl insists that she is not acquainted with these fraudsters who work here. After that, they go for a walk in the city. Turo is wondering if there is a weapons store nearby. He appeals to the girl to buy a sword for him. Diata agrees, but notes that it will only take it if the price is acceptable. They go to the store and begin to consider the swords. Daytu nods towards weapons and notes that these specimens look really worthy. Turus enthusiastically notes the shine and durability of the blades. Undoubtedly, these are wonderful swords. The seller, a middle-aged man, smiles approvingly and says that the guy has a flawless taste. They purchased a sword. Diato is in surprise that he does not believe in his happiness. A man gave them a blade only for half of the market value. A real find. Ria appeals to the guy asking, "Can she look at the sword a little more carefully?" The tour is interested in how you are a sword and whether it is worth your price. Ria replies that it is an ordinary iron rod and also adds, "The blade is too thick. With such paper, you will not split." The tour agrees with the girl. She is right. Raya smiled and noted that it was just a beautiful blunt sword with a shiny surface. Tour expressed surprise why the thing was so cheap. Dito added that this is just a piece, so there is no reason to worry. For such a price, it is quite acceptable. Seeing the turn, the tour is interested in asking that it was a store, because many people gathered there. Dito explains that this is one of the stores where the goods have just been brought. Turo is wondering what they trade. Dito replies, "Everything that gets to us from the surface, fines, trophies from the dungeon, even stolen for illegal resale. We indifferent that this is the main thing to have a price." Kid points to the guy and is interested in what is with him. He notes that he looks as if he saw something extremely unpleasant, and a man from the Guild of Mercenaries stands next to him. The tour is also paying attention to the boy and asks the stranger who was nearby. Dito drew attention to the sword tattoos and shields on the man's face. She explained that it was the emblem of the Guild of Mercenaries. Dito warned the tour. It is better not to contact such people and never provoke a fight. At that moment, Ray approached her husband and wondered if he really intended to sell that thing. He confirmed, asking why she was interested. Ray said she was ready to buy it and wore cost. The child was in a hurry to stop Ray. Ray approached the boy and reported that now he was not threatening. The boy nodded in the sign of consent. The tour wondered that Ray intends to do further with the guy. Ray replied that she would take him to the shelter she would take care of. The boy was immediately interested in this shelter and asked a clarifying question. The young man replied that they could not stay. His younger sister would be alone in the Guild of Mercenaries. It was here that they lived with their sister until they were taken away by representatives of the same guild. The man just smiled and noted that it is not good to wander within their territory. The guys start annoying. Ria explains what he says. He buys everything at his own expense. Date gets a bag of money and warns them. It is better not to create even more difficulty. The man states that he does not need the rest of Date. If he sells goods through a men's store or through the nearest market, he will easily get twice as much as Daito suggested. Teru got flashes from anger, but Daisa asks with peace. Let him do without a fight. If the guy quarrels with the Guild of Mercenaries on the ground floor, exploring the dungeon will be several times harder. At this point, she gets the guy's sword. She asks if they really do not want it, and then sharply beats the man on the head with the backside of the sword. Dateo is indignant that she does not like such developments, and a man in response is threatened with their pay. He whistles, and a huge crowd of people appears around the guys. The tour notes that there are more and more. Raya anxiously adds that people are just coming, and asks what to do now. Edo notes that they are surrounded and have no other way out. It is necessary to break. At this point, a girl appears behind the wall, in the hands of which a mysterious ball, the essence of which is difficult to understand. For the next moment, she threw a ball directly into the crowd, and it explodes, releasing a thick cloud of smoke. The tour cannot understand what is happening, and suddenly begins to suffocate with cough. Suddenly, someone sharply grabs him by his hand and pulls behind. The tour does not understand what is happening, and sees almost nothing because of the smoke that pinches the eyes. However, he clearly felt that someone is pulling him somewhere. Suddenly, he notices this girl. Tail. The men were lost in the smoke curtain and had no idea where the boys went. Someone suggested that they could not escape far. He immediately ordered everyone to start search. At this moment, the tour moved narrow streets, barely managed to catch a breath. He did not yet understand what had happened, but knew one thing firmly. This girl with his tail saved his life. The girl stopped and looked around, assured that she was safe here. The tour thought that this iron door was leading to some secret hiding place. Meanwhile, the stranger, calling her cat, shouted someone from the inside and ordered the door to open. A password was asked from the door. The girl replied, "Straighten fat pigs," and the door began to open immediately. The girl said they would be temporarily left here in the hiding place. It concerned Rutankter, although his two comrades and the guy remained in place. She assured that they did not threaten them here, because they took the pursuers alone to easily get rid of their supervision. They agreed to meet here. The guy strongly crossed the threshold. The girl ordered her husband in a black cloak to contact the headquarters. He nodded as a sign of consent. The guy crossed the threshold of the room, dazzling with wooden drawers. Turut decided that it was something like a warehouse. From the inside of the room really made the impression. The girl sighed lightly. The girl dropped the hood and told the boy to find a place. The tour asked about her cat ears. She asked what happened, and she found out if the guy was really not liked when he was rescued by semi-human. The tour replied that of course no, he was just stunned. He sincerely thanked her for saving him and his friends. Then the guy wondered why she did it all. The girl explained that their main mission was to save Nick, and the boys were near by accident. The tour first thought it was a boy. He later said that he was involved in the Guild of Thieves together with his sister. In the end, the tour explained that this nickname is worn by girls belonging to this guild. The girl nodded in response. They say, "Isn't it obvious?" The tour caught himself thinking that he would have guessed before. In the end, that guy also wore a similar hood. The girl noted that the guy should understand that guilds have no right to openly arrange a fight in the middle of the street. She added that the boys did a great service for them, distracting all themselves. She thanked the boy with gratitude. She smiled and noticed that his girl had greatly facilitated their lives, saving everyone from the hassle of one blow on the head of that bully. The girl wondered the name of the boy, which Taro was politely introduced. In response, she reported that everyone was calling her Kayot. She sincerely wanted to thank Nick and asked the boy if he needed something. But Turris replied that he did not need anything. They already helped excessively by pulling them out of this mess. The cat assured that the boys had already given them a lot of help just starting a fight. For this, she sought to express her personal thanks to the boy. In response, he noted that if he had already gone, he could ask the girl to ask. The cat suggested not to hesitate and voice her desire. The Tour wondered if he could take this room then and whether he really did not need anything here. The girl was in surprised eyebrows, not hoping to hear such a request. Tutor suggests that there is also an iron door in this room, and the situation resembles the one in front of his own room. There may be a hidden passage that leads to it. The girl apologized, explaining that she could not offer the boy this room on her own. This decision goes beyond her authority. Turo nodded, agreeing with her words. The Tour proposes to inspect the room on its own. The cat is surprised. Why does this review in general, and why does the Tour take such an initiative? The Tour is thinking about what to say, and notices that his behavior is suspicious. The cat is interested, and suddenly the guy is really an ordinary scientist? She notes that if you think, the guy does not look like an adventure seeker. He speaks more of the monsters. The guy agrees with that. The girl reports that the guy can see everything around as much as he wants, and she will make him a company. The guy thanks her sincerely. He looks carefully at the room, catching every little thing with his eyes. Suddenly the girl returns to the boy and suddenly asks if he really does not like the demi-luda. Tours wondered and wondered why she broke this topic. The girl replies that many people do not like half-people. Tuiru previously considered such a dislike of the world, and did not even think about it. However, he notes that in his native lands, on the contrary, they are treated with great sympathy. He then turns to the girl and is interested. Is her name in Cat? But she smiles and explains that it is only a nickname. The Tour thought about the meaning of this nickname. Did she choose him because of disdain for people? He hopes that, looking at her peculiarities, will be able to guess her real name. He decides to evaluate the girl, but is surprised to notice that her characteristics are not available. Suddenly, the cat returns to the Tour, and with a sly smile asks if he really tried to look at her parameters. The Tour confesses that he just sought to find out her real name. In addition, he reflected how thieves can immediately feel when someone applies to them, because they easily recognize it with their skills. The girl noted that once the guy looks so carefully, let him look right. She warned. He should know that her assessment as a person is very high and that she knows everything. The girl looks around, suddenly laughs and states that the boy has just a funny name. She adds that she is a strange name and asks where he came from that nickname. The girl assures that unlimited growth is really cool. Moreover, the hero also has hidden, absolutely unique abilities. Such words are amazed by the Tour. It is amazed by his secret talents. The girl explains. The essence of the ability to approach another girl and increase her limit of level from 1 to 3 times a day. The guy thought that the name of this skill was too long. The Tour decided that these were the consequences of this skill. But suddenly the cat jumps on him, knocks the boy from his feet and, without spending time, asks to allow him to test his ability. The girl, meanwhile, is approaching the Tour. The girl happily reports that the task was completed, its level limit increased by another mark. Meanwhile, the Tour notes that the girl has already checked everything, and politely asks her to free up. The girl asks if they can do it. The Tour categorically refuses. She turns to him and notes that he is probably not too favored by hemispheres. What the Tour denies? No, he sympathizes with them. The Tour felt that the girl had given him pleasure 3 times. He asked her to stop and get off him. But the girl suddenly asked if it seems to him that a little bit here. The Tour did not hide his surprise. The girl seems like Miriam, but adds that he can turn to her simply, extent, and he calls Rue. The guy asks her to stop and wonder why she removes the belt. The girl wondered whether, or it was 3 kisses did not want the desire in it. Tour immediately saw it and began to assure that it was not true. The girl asked if everything was true, and at the same time felt that the other part of it was ready to act. She was pleased that the guy reacts so passionately, even if she is only half a person. He could do nothing about it. Suddenly a voice came behind the door, which assured that they would get to the Tour very soon. Rie stated that if something happens to him, she will collapse anger on the Guild of Thieves. Kid reassured her, explaining that these people were their allies, not enemies. The man reported that they were almost in place. Only then it became clear. Their path leads here. Turo was worried that he would get into the mess if they were noticed. Panic, he hastened to turn to Mary. "Get out of me! Someone goes!" The girl confessed that she was no longer able to hold back and stop. The young man, turning to the cat, whispered the conventional word. The tour explained to the girl that he had already called a password, so now the turn is after her. You need to answer. And the cat enthusiastically added that it will now start the most interesting. Suddenly, she exclaimed that they were business now, and asked to visit later. Both the tour and Ria were genuinely surprised by such a reaction. Ray wondered what the girl was saying, and asked them to show them a tour. Dito returned to the tour with the question of what happened. The extent advised the tour to leave them alone and have a little fun. Returning to Diato, he told her to use magic and just blow the door. Turo considered it a true madness. True asked Mary to retreat and grabbed her hand. The girl at first complained to his rudeness, and later suddenly expressed a desire to continue. However, Tri pushed her away. He threw the cloak on her shoulders and pressed the button. Two were sad for the boys, but at the same time rejoiced that everything was fine with them. Kid said that the guy also escaped. Rhea stated that she had heard strange voices and wondered if everything was fine with the boy. The tour reassured her, saying that everything is under control. Dito wondered, what about measure? This was the answer that she was busy. Turo added that the extent is now removing it, so he suggested going inside and wait a little. Subsequently, the tour confessed that he was concerned about their fate, so sincerely glad that they got here intact. Ray has taken this opinion, noting that they still have enough problems. She stressed that if they are noticed by members of the Guild of Mercenaries, the consequences can be dangerous. Kido added that the guy from the Guild of Thieves has already gone out to check the situation, so they will only be able to leave the hiding place when it is quite safe. The tour nodded, confirming that the Guild of Thieves support them. From the second floor, there are exits to the surface that can be reached through the guild. He wondered if they knew about such ways. Ray answered negatively, and the child supported her. Then Turo was addressed to Marie with the same question. The girls were concerned about whether everything was fine with Mary, because she looked as if she had picked up a cold or something like that. Tour suggested looking for a surface. The extent was astonished whether the tour really intends to climb there. The tour notes that, unlike the locals, they do not have to stay on the ground floor. The extent suggests that if this is difficult, you may try to join the Thieves of the Thieves. It can be a profitable opportunity for them. Mary noted that when they join the guild, they will automatically fall under the defense of a temporary non-aggression pact with the Guild of Mercenaries. In addition, they will open access to all infrastructure and secret routes of the Guild of Thieves. Daida acknowledged that this is a favorable offer. Ray was surprised to ask what was talking about. The entry into the Guild of Thieves seemed to her an absurd. She was convinced that this guild is managed by light-hearted adventurers who steal for the sake of enrichment. In her thoughts, Ray has already decided. He would take this boy with his younger sister to the surface and transfer them to the orphans. Daito turned to Ria, warning. She should be aware of how risky to bring children with him. They only miraculously got out of the Guild of Mercenaries through the help of thieves. Daito insisted. Children should be left with the care of those who saved them from danger. Ray stated that they were even taught to steal. In addition, children are completely devoid of quality education. The extent was told that children who have lost their parents find their way to their guild. You just need to learn about the existence of this community. At the same time, she believes that children do not have to become members at all. They are their choice because they are already adults and adults decide for them inappropriate. Seeing the expression of Ria, she explained that she believed that the mercenaries hunt Nick. It would be safer to stay on the surface. Ray summed up that the decision was made. They would rise to the surface with Nick and his sister as soon as the situation. A little time passed, and the tour, agreeing with Mary, noted that they should definitely find a safe way to get out on the surface with the children. He asked Mary to ask whether she could help find such a route. Mary wondered if he could not worry at least. The tournament apologized and explained that they have no time. You need to hurry. The extent wondered whether it was worth exploring this room. The tour replied that they would come back here later, as soon as all cases were completed. Suddenly from the door, someone's replica, turned to the girl, sounded from the door. The voice reported that the entrance was free. The young man came closer and called to the cat. They say members of the Guild of Mercenaries had already gone. Then the girl leaned and, barely audible, whispered something in his ear. Tour thought she explained the boy. They would take with them a sister Nick. Looking back, she adds that they seem to have their boss intend to thank them for Nick's rescue. Tour stated that they were time to go. Suddenly, Dito sharply covered his mouth with his palm and whispered, so that he was silent and not slammed. The young man was clearly going to reject the invitation made by their boss. Usually, such people are very serious. If they get their supervisor, they can get into great trouble. The Guild of Thieves has 800 participants, and the guy just joined them. She wondered whether he really wanted to go on their enmity, especially after they have made so much effort to save them. He notes, "It is not necessary to show themselves on the worst side to those who came to the rescue. On the contrary, if they get affection, everything will go much easier." Tu agrees and adds that they are sure to meet him. They walk slowly with the city, the extent noticing the tour that it looks exhausted. The tour only sighs in response, agreeing. The extent adds that although their guild members are more than merchants, when it comes to trade, things are not as good as they would like. She is interested in how it all looks like the eyes of a scientist. The tour replies that the city will probably have to redevelop. The extent asks what it means. The tour tells that in its native land, renewal of areas means investing huge resources into expedited places, turning them into comfortable life. In his opinion, it is a kind of restoration that helps to combine the old with the present. Mary is thinking about it. Turo adds that his hometown is actively introducing modern technologies to make life more comfortable. However, in his opinion, the most pressing problem on the ground floor remains the lack of order and security. In this case, they could build a spacious residential complex with shops and restaurants on the ground floor. And to protect the residents, it is necessary to equip a reliable security system that will not allow criminals inside. Ray, with a sincere smile, agreed. This is a really great idea. Kids will always feel safe. Dito supplemented that if everything goes well, new meetings will open. They will be even more guests from the surface. The extent asked the tour to tell you more about this update. After a while, the tour shared with her all the details. The extent proposes to join the local efforts to develop this region together. In response, Dudo expresses that together with a large team, they will be able to defeat the trading guild. The tour agrees and points out that, in his opinion, the chances of cooperation will increase significantly if they are given the right to trade on the ground floor. The extent thanked the tour and admitted that now she had hope for this place. The tour noted that at the beginning they would probably have to overcome many difficulties. The extent answered that they would be full. Add to the care of children also responsibility for guilt. And all this rests on Mary's shoulders. Is it so irreplaceable? Meanwhile, Mary reported that they had already got places. They reached the headquarters of the Guild of the Thieves. At the entrance, they were met by the girl in glasses, thanked the visit for the visit, and was welcomed by the secretary of the leader, Noella. She adds that the leader wants to thank them, so she invites everyone to enter. After that, he reports that Kat and Nick will be waiting here. The girl invites them to enter the room. Another girl was on the bed. It was their leader, Dorothy Friend. Tudu finally realizes that their leader is really a girl. He welcomes her and says that I am glad. And Dito adds with a sincere smile that she is also glad to meet her. The girl is silent. Nella explains that she is instructed to convey the words of guests. She sincerely apologizes for the inconvenience caused. The tour suggested that all this mystery was needed to cover the true face of the leader. It seems to manage the guild is not easy and full of worry. They whisper, and Noel, on behalf of the head of the Guild of Thieves, sincerely thanks them for the salvation of Nick. However, in doing so, they have earned enemies. Now the Guild of Mercenaries is extremely hostile to them. Noel suggested that they become honorary guests of the guild, and are now wondering whether they have already made a decision. Ria stated that she refused this proposal. The Dietel remarked to the girl, "They say, it is worth behaving politely." Ria added that, moreover, she was going to take Nick and his sister. Noella noted that she was only her own opinion. At the same time, she emphasized that no one is forcing these children to join their guild. If you ask each of them, the answer will be the same. She again considers the situation and understands. Yes, it is clear to her. But children deserve to grow safe. Noella returns to the group to continue the excursion. She is wondering if he is able to guarantee Nick and his sister Marie a calm and safe childhood, where they can grow in peace. Raya assured she promises. Even if not perfect, the new place will be much better than it. Tour asked a little time to resolve the negotiation. Noella did not argue and agreed. Turo approaches Raya and shares his thoughts. He is sure that the shelter she supports will give the children proper care. A girl with a smile agrees with him. Araya turns to Dito, worried a little, and asks if she asks too much, but can he still count on her support? The child replies that she is nowhere to go. Meanwhile, Turo asks the Seamuk, and it begins to be noticeably nervous. barely holding back the excitement. They smile. Two roots rotate to them and make a promise, and Noella nods with a grateful smile. She reports that the leader has decided to entrust the children to their group, but puts forward one condition. The toddlers will accompany a member of their guild until they get a safe place. Noella soothes them, asking not to worry, and explains that, among other things, the presence of someone from their group scares representatives of other guilds who could create problems. This will allow most ways to travel more safer and calmer. The tour notes that in this case, they will report safe support of Nick and Marie. Noel replies to this. The leader is extremely grateful to them for their help. The next time they will be met with sincere hospitality. For a while, Nella reported that she would call someone from the guild to accompany Nick and Marie. Ryu, sighing lightly, noted that the atmosphere was tense. The Diet nodded in the sign of consent. Tour decided that Mary had already left, so he had to see her at least before leaving. And it was at this point that Nick and Marie appeared. Rhea assured them that she could always rely on her. The Extent approaches them and states that it will make the company on the road and become their leader. She turns to the boy and is interested in what bothers him. The tour smiles and assures that everything is fine. The Extent is admitted that life underground is already tired of her, so she dreams of getting to the surface for diversity. Tours gladly supports her desire and shines with happiness. The Extent reports that the leader allowed her to carry them to the special exit from the denial of the thieves to the surface. This is the shortest route that can only be found from here. Grandpa does not restrain the delight. It's just great. And the Extent, looking at the guy, is interested. What thought did he make up their leader? Then Rue replies that it is extremely beautiful. Even if you only see her outline, it is impossible not to notice that incredible beauty. The Extent agrees with this. The tour notes that its shape is also extremely huge. To this extent, he pinched him. Subsequently, the tour reports that they finally got up to the surface, and confesses that it is feeling easy. The Extent wondered if the guy rarely went outside. Tora replied that for some reason he was almost never outside. They climbed the stairs and noticed the light in the distance. It seemed to be very close. Finally, they find themselves on the surface. Togura thinks, here he is, the same other world. He notices the city. Rhea tells that it is Herklin. Since it is located near the maze of Yomi, the city is also known as Yai City. This is where the famous Gilded Adventure is also located. Ray asks the guy how he lives in their world. Unlike the tier room, there is neither electricity nor computers. The GAI is asks to Ray not to diminish their world, because the city has shops and many other amenities. The Weave is interested in the thought of the neck. She fascinates that the local air is extremely clean, the sun shines surprisingly brightly, and the villa itself impresses with its beauty. In her opinion, this world is a true fairy tale. The girls smiled cheerfully and decided to arrange a small tour, leading it with the most interesting corners of the city.